a people built on the ancient strength of fire. And that fire of survival continues to burn against all odds.
Leila Molana Allen. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we'll be back next weekend, so do join us again then, here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme from our own correspondent.
Good morning. And hello, Manitoba and Winnipeg. I'm Julie Buckingham. You are with Information Radio on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM, of course, on the app, wherever you are, and on YouTube. Welcome to Monday morning. We've made it, and it's spring break. Current temperature is -4 outside our downtown studios. And you know what? It is going to be a smooth drive for now. We do have some snowfall in the area, in particular in the Brandon and Dauphin area where we're under a special weather statement. The city of Winnipeg, though, is also going to get some snowfall, but not until a little bit later on. So that is something to keep in mind for traffic for later on this morning or into this afternoon. Let's say hello to the team that is keeping me calm and ready this morning. Abby Adiemi is our senior tech and covering that weather, no doubt, watching that system that is making its way in. Darren Morash has the enviable job of making sure that my face is on YouTube and all of the great pictures and sound to go with it as well. May McKillop is our show director this morning and is also covering our commute. So hopefully you don't have anything to tell us about, but if you do, you can certainly give us a call at 204-780-0893. Our morning show is on until 8:37 this morning. Let's get things going by heading over to our news center with your local headlines. Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's Premier says he looks forward to working with the federal NDP's new leader. Avi Lewis proclaimed on Sunday after a decisive first ballot win. Lewis's proposals to completely transition away from fossil fuels have been criticized by provincial NDP leaders on the prairies. Wab Kinew says he and Lewis have different opinions, but he's not concerned. He says they share similar values when it comes to healthcare and education. And mourning a woman who died after being hit by a semi-truck over the weekend, a vigil last night in the North End. Nadine Goosehead Sr. was hit by a semi at Dufferin and Maine on Saturday night. We'll hear how her sister is going to remember her in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
And as we continue this morning, you know what? I've heard the birds chirping. It is that time of year. Birding is back. Make sure you listen up for that. Stay with us after World Report.
On cue.
I'm Garvey Bailey in for Tom Power. The actor Sterling K. Brown once lost out on playing Atticus Finch in a production of To Kill a Mockingbird, and it changed everything. He'll be here to talk about quitting finance to pursue his passion and how acting has helped him discover his life's purpose.
Something that feels so good.
Q this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Rescue workers dig through the rubble of a building in the northern Israeli city of Haifa. Officials say it was one of the several waves of overnight strikes launched by Iran and its proxies. Israel launched its own overnight barrage, striking targets in Iran and Lebanon. Despite the escalation, U.S. President Donald Trump says talks are progressing. I'm now joined by CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington, who's following the story for us. So, Willie, first, what are we hearing from Donald Trump?
Angie, U.S. President Donald Trump once again reiterating that the U.S. military operations against Iran were progressing ahead of schedule, but also that negotiations with Tehran were ratcheting up. Speaking with reporters last night while aboard Air Force One, the president said a deal was potentially within reach. Trump adding that Iran was offering an olive branch in the form of allowing additional oil tankers to transit through the Strait of Hormuz, this after they allowed 10 through last week.
They gave us 20 boatloads of oil, and that starts being shipped tomorrow. We're having very good meetings. both directly and indirectly.
But it's still unclear who exactly the U.S. is speaking to inside Iran. In comments published by a major news agency in Iran, a spokesperson for the foreign ministry says there have been no direct negotiations with the U.S.
So, Willie, we're hearing a lot of reaction as well from all of this. What are we hearing from other leaders?
Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is calling for de-escalation and clarity.
I want to see more certainty in what the objectives of the war are. A de-escalation is in the global economy's interests.
That's a sentiment shared by many, but it all comes as more U.S. troops arrive in the region. Meanwhile, Pakistan says it will hold talks between the two sides. The country's foreign minister saying those talks are expected in the coming days, but neither the U.S. nor Iran has confirmed that they will be taking part in any talks in Pakistan.
Willie, thank you so much for this. CBC's Willie Lowry for us in Washington.
Thank you.
A Winnipeg man is taking WestJet to court. He says the airline canceled his flight and denied compensation, citing safety reasons. But he then did a little bit of digging and found out there was much more to the story. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
This is the one that went to Kelowna.
Rocky Neufeld is poring over flight records he obtained for his fight against WestJet. The Winnipeg man was sitting on a plane in Edmonton, headed to Fort McMurray, when he says a WestJet employee told everyone they had to get off. The aircraft was needed for another route. But shortly after, WestJet sent Neufeld an email claiming a different reason for cancellation.
They said it was mechanical issues.
Under federal rules, airlines don't have to pay passengers when they cancel a flight for maintenance that's safety-related. So WestJet denied Neufeld's compensation claim. He took the airline to small claims. In its defense, WestJet submitted a maintenance record showing Neufeld's plane did indeed need repair. But flight records show WestJet swapped in that broken plane 8 minutes before canceling Neufeld's flight, then used the original plane for a different route. Neufeld says in confidential settlement talks, a WestJet lawyer admitted to the last-minute plane switcheroo.
It was just wrong.
Air passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács says he strongly opposes people breaking a confidentiality agreement, but also says Neufeld's case is clear proof WestJet pulled a fast one.
When you tell a consumer this aircraft broke down, but in fact the aircraft actually was elsewhere, that's fraud.
WestJet declined to answer any questions about this case or another similar case where the company swapped planes last minute, then claimed unplanned maintenance required for safety and denied compensation again. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
A veteran from Nova Scotia says he has lost trust in Veterans Affairs Canada. He says he's been receiving income replacement benefits for years, and as Andy Mullins reports, he says he was told just last month he's on the hook for tens of thousands in overpaid benefits.
I had to discuss with my wife that we may be losing our house because of a mistake that Veterans Affairs made.
In February, Veterans Affairs told Stuart Micklethwaite he owed them nearly $70,000. But the department had overpaid his income replacement benefit. It's a benefit for veterans who are unable to work because of mental or physical injuries. Micklethwaite has been receiving it since 2021. He won an appeal, but the ordeal has left him with anxiety and frustration.
It's going to take a lot for VAC to get that trust back. For me, I don't think it'll ever happen because I had to fight this myself.
Peter Stauffer is the chairperson for the Veterans Legal Assistance Foundation. He knows of 10 other veterans who want to appeal clawbacks, but wonders if there are more who need support to file an appeal.
Veterans Affairs should know they're dealing with some very fragile people here, and they shouldn't be treating them in that way. It really is uncalled for.
Veterans Affairs says it carefully reviews all documentation before sending out clawback letters. Between October and February, the department has forgiven 45 overpayments. Andy Mullins, CBC News, Halifax.
It's Avi Lewis's first day on the job as leader of the federal New Democrats. He's promising to bring the party back to life after a dismal showing in last year's election. Marina von Stackelberg has more now on the challenges that lie ahead for Lewis.
Thanks, everyone.
The election of Avi Lewis marks a political shift to the left for Canada's NDP. The new leader is a self-described anti-capitalist. He wants publicly owned grocery stores and banks, large-scale government housing, and the end of fossil fuel expansion.
The NDP will start winning again because we will become that beacon to the 99%.
Lewis won decisively, taking 56% of the vote. His campaign was galvanized by a grassroots group of activists and young people. Voter James Newman says under Lewis, the NDP will know what it stands for.
People were saying this convention was going to be a funeral. It's not. It's a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Lewis has support from the older generation, too. He's backed by Libby Davies, a longtime MP and prominent figure in the party.
Well, it does remind me of the convention where Jack Layton got elected. There was the same sense of buoyancy and change.
But that change is not sitting well with provincial NDP leaders in Saskatchewan and Alberta. They were quick to criticize his policies as ideological and unrealistic. Now that Lewis has won, he'll face a whole new set of challenges. The party is $13 million in debt and only has 6 MPs. Lewis needs to win his own seat in the House of Commons and then win over Canadians. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, the 2026 Juno Awards was full of history-making moments for both veterans and newcomers to the Canadian music scene. Magda Gabraselassie has the highlights.
The Junos' big show started with a bang. A surprise performance from Rush with new drummer Annika Niles. There were milestone moments for many winners. The Beaches winning Group of the Year 3 years in a row, the first all-female band to do it.
There's no better feeling than coming home. Thank you so much, Canada. We love you.
Cameron Whitcomb, on his Juno debut, took home 2 wins, including Breakthrough Artist.
I will not squander this opportunity. I love you guys, and thank you so much.
And when it comes to the legends, Joni Mitchell got the Lifetime Achievement Award. She spoke about how an aneurysm she suffered some years ago changed her life for the better, and she thanked the crowd for their support.
I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to be back in Canada.
Nelly Furtado, who's getting inducted in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, was also honored.
You know, growing up and feeling like I saw people I could relate with on TV, listening to it, because Canada's always cared about art. Canada's always cared about culture. I'm a product of that.
From legends in the industry to newbies having a breakout year, there's been a lot to celebrate at the Junos. Magda Gabraselassie, CBC News, Hamilton.
Probably be a waste of your time, but who knows?
That's R&B star Daniel Caesar. He took home International Achievement Award and Contemporary R&B Recording of the Year for the song Son of Spurgey. The album features a song with his father, a gospel singer who goes by the name Spurgey.
Yeah, girl, you
and that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not Marcy Marcusa. She'll be back. Not to worry. Next time you hear her voice, she'll be in Brandon. I'm Julie Buckingham. You are listening to Information Radio on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Welcome back to a Monday morning spring break. Perhaps you're a little more bleary-eyed today. Current temperature outside Studio 15, downtown Winnipeg, -5 degrees. Abby Adiemi will have your full forecast in a moment. Later this hour on the show, victory for Avi Lewis as he becomes the new leader of the federal NDP. On Information Radio, we'll talk to reporter David Baxter, who spent the weekend at the convention here in Winnipeg. A new radio station is coming to our city. We'll hear from the host. And still to come, Week 5 of the U.S.-Israel war against Iran. We'll speak to a reporter in Armenia. But first, let's speak to our very own Heather Wells in our news center.
Good morning. Well, some NDP leaders, NDP supporters, I should say, from Manitoba say the new federal leader can unite the party. Brandon University delegate Kirsten Garba was in Winnipeg for the party's federal convention. She thinks Avi Lewis's policies resonated with young people, adding he now has more opportunities to visit and learn about the prairies. So we'll hear more reaction coming up through the morning. As well, a Winnipeg court has ordered a former chiropractor to stop doing chiropractic work after he was found to be practicing without a license. That story as well in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi is here, and I know it looks very calm right now.
Well,
but there is a but.
There is a but there. We're expecting this late season snowfall. You know, that's kind of system that comes and it just tells March. You know, March actually came in like a ship, and it's like living with a loud roar. That's what I see, because we started March, you know, with we saw those warm temperatures somewhere in between there, and it's like, you're not going to close, you're not going to pull the curtains on March. We're expecting, you know, this late season snowfall pushing through southwestern Manitoba right now. We're already tracking snowfall in the Brandon and Dauphin area, and this will impact mostly regions towards the Parkland into tomorrow morning. We're talking about 10 to 15 centimeters of fresh accumulation. It's going to really make morning rush hour a bit difficult, and this heavy snow is going to be settling in across a lot of communities in that area. I'm talking about if you're in the Brandon area, you're going to track it all the way towards Nipoa, and then for the Killarney side, it will impact you also down to Minnedosa. You will feel it, and of course for folks heading towards the Riding Mountain National Park, be prepared for slow travels, as conditions will definitely changing on you, and of course keep an eye on the sky as we try to breeze through this final stretch of what winter spring has for us. But for Winnipeg right now, the forecast for today, we are also expecting snow today. It's going to start anytime, so you might be seeing dry pavement outside, but we're expecting snow. We're looking at about 2 centimeters for the city. Current temperatures at the Forks and at the airport, we're tracking -5 there, and we will stay there for most of the day. Let's just say -5 is where we're going to stay with the snow coming this way.
You're locking it in?
Yeah, I'm just
Final
locking
answer?
it in. Final
All
answer.
right.
Just expect it's more about the snow, not the temperature today.
Okay. I would like to know. I would like to know who decided or who made the appointment to have their snow tires taken off.
No, not me.
Not you?
Not me.
Okay. Somebody out there did. And as a result, that's why we've got the snowfall coming. It's not me either. Speaking of the commute, May McKillop is the show director and also monitoring the commuter line today. Good morning.
It's not me either.
Not
I have
you
not
either.
even thought about that appointment yet. But I do have to say I had a wonderful spring moment yesterday when I walked on a light sheet of ice and you feel it crack underneath you, and the little bit of water comes up and you get to kind of poke the ice away.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice tease. However, the snow is coming. So you might want to prepare for that later today in your commute. So far in Winnipeg, we're doing okay. It might be a rubber boot kind of day. It might be a snow boot kind of day. I'm keeping an eye on the highways throughout the show today. I think if you're traveling along Highway number 1, Highway 10 up through Dauphin, Highway 16 through Nipoa, you may want to prepare for those snowy conditions. 511 highways for highway conditions, or if you want to give us a call for anything in the commuter line, that number to call is 204-788-3093.
15 minutes after 6 o'clock, I'm Julie Buckingham in today for Marcy Marcusa. Well, you maybe were watching the Junos last night. We will speak to a Juno winner later in the show, but also Nelly Furtado was featured. And of course, her famous song, I'm Like a Bird. Well, apparently the show is going to the birds already, and it's very early in the morning. Weekly bird walks are back at Canadian Mennonite University for the 4th year. Arosha Canada will be hosting the event on campus. Starts Thursday and will continue until the end of September. Graham Peters is a conservation science coordinator for the organization and Environmental Christian Conservation Group. Good morning to you, Graham.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
I've loved hearing the sounds of the chickadees. It just I don't know what it is. I know it's a simple little bird, but I've always loved the chickadee, and I think we all have our favorite birds. I've been busy watching the magpies outside my window at home as well. So tell us a little bit about the species of birds that people could see on these walks.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different species that we can see, and a variety that we'll get to see over the course of from April till September. There's going to be birds passing through. Certainly, you'll see those chickadees. You'll see those geese. Everybody's familiar with those Canada geese. But yeah, there's going to be a large variety. We've seen eastern bluebirds, which have been an exciting thing for us. We've put up nest boxes because we're so excited about them. Chimney swifts is another one that we'll see later on in the spring. Yeah, and other things like red-winged blackbirds, nuthatches, all kinds of birds. We've seen actually 109 species over the course of doing this project.
Wow. And what about last year?
Last year we saw 90. Last year we saw 90 species altogether.
I remember as a little kid living out in Rapid City, Manitoba, we built the birdhouses to try and encourage the bluebirds to come back. And it's about creating that environment for the birds too, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we've been doing that. We've noticed that they were raising young in the area. You know, we saw just a couple at the beginning of the season. And then as the season went on, we saw a few more, right? So then we're like, okay, they're nesting. Let's create some more habitat for them.
So why do you think?
Sorry, go ahead.
Why do you think people like events like these? So what are you hearing from people that participate?
Oh, I think people really enjoy getting to know what's going on in their neighborhoods. People like to know the birds that they're sharing spaces with. And people love to learn. I think these bird walks are a really great opportunity for birders at any level to get involved. We have people who come out who birded a lot and have a lot of experience and are really willing to share that experience with others. And so you get to really learn a lot.
What has been the favorite bird that you've spotted so far?
Oh, definitely the chimney swifts. I remember the first time seeing them. Like they nest in chimneys, and so there's a quite large chimney on campus that we've seen them nesting in. And just the first time you see a chimney swift diving into the chimney, it's just spectacular. They have a distinct call too, so that you can kind of really know to look ahead for them. Yeah, that's a really exciting one for me.
What does the walking route look like?
Yeah, so it's a short walk. We spend an hour going around the perimeter of the North Campus. So if you're familiar with that, there's a farm on site, Metanoia Farms. So we start in that corner of the campus, and then we walk south towards the new library, around to a wetland habitat that CMU's created, and then back up north towards the golf course, and then back around to the farm. So that's probably about an hour walk altogether, just around the perimeter of the North Campus.
And can anyone participate?
Absolutely. Yeah, the more the merrier. We'd love to have anyone come out and join us.
Has birding become cool? I feel like there's movies about it now, and I'm just hearing more young people are more engaged with it. It felt like it was like something your grandparents did, and they got the book and they dog-eared everything that they had seen. But I feel like it's really become a hit, a real cool thing to do.
I would argue and say that it's always been cool, and we're just realizing it now.
Ah, there it is.
Absolutely. No, it's really just an exciting way to connect in your space and get to know what is going on. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on this. I hope you have lots of people come and check it out. Once again, what time and where should people meet?
Yeah, that's going to be 8:30 on Thursdays. And then at the North Campus at CMU, right at the entranceway, we gather there. We're pretty hard to spot, just a small group of folks with binoculars.
All right. Graham Peters is a conservation science coordinator for Arosha Canada, a birdwatching group starting this Thursday at Canadian Mennonite University.
Hi, I'm Josh Dela Cruz. I am the host of Blues, Clues, and You. I am defending Foe by Ian Reid in this year's Canada Reads, one book to build bridges. You are not alone. You're going through the same exact thing that other people are going through, and there's strength in that. Sharing our experience with that book is how Foe and how reading in general builds bridges between people.
Canada Reads. It all starts April 13th. For more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
21 minutes after 6 o'clock, -5 in downtown Winnipeg, and New Democrats from across this country gathering here in Winnipeg this weekend to pick their new leader and that top job, taking the reins, Avi Lewis. To hear more about him and what's next for the federal NDP, we have reached David Baxter, a reporter with the Canadian Press, who is in Winnipeg. Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So let's start and introduce the masses to Avi Lewis. Who is he?
Yeah, so Avi Lewis, he's a bit of NDP royalty, really. He is the grandson of David Lewis, one of the co-founders of the party as it is today, and a former federal leader himself. His father, Stephen Lewis, a former leader of the Ontario NDP, and now Avi is taking the helm of the federal party. He's a filmmaker, former journalist. He worked for outlets like Much Music and City TV throughout the 90s. More recently, Al Jazeera. He's an activist known for the LEAP Manifesto that came out about 10 years ago or so now, talking about the need for Canada to quickly move away from fossil fuels to meet the climate crisis. And he is also the husband to author Naomi Klein, known for books like The Shock Doctrine. And Mr. Lewis, he ran on an unabashedly left-wing campaign where he would say Canada needs to have big, bold ideas to meet the challenges of today. Some of his key platform planks on that front included addressing things like affordability through having publicly owned and operated grocery stores, telecommunications companies, kind of similar to SaskTel and the former MTS, and banking as well. He also wants to see public construction companies that use Canadian products to build homes to help the housing crisis. So really talking about a big social democratic vision to contrast the NDP from Mark Carney and the governing Liberals.
So a first ballot victory. What does that leadership vote result tell us about the party right now?
Yeah, so that really cements what people have been talking about since their disastrous election result last year, where they lost official party status, got knocked down to just 7 seats in the House of Commons, 6 now that Laurie Ayla, the Nunavut MP, has crossed the floor and joined the Liberals just a couple of weeks ago. And people have been wanting change with a lot more focus on local riding associations in order to try to get more people elected. And Lewis, he agrees with that stance, and the party is adopting a more year-round organizing model. So they plan to be a lot more visible in communities, not just in election time, to build up that volunteer base, the connection to the community, and, for their sake, try to get more people out to the polls and vote NDP in a future election so they can get back to official party status and one day form government, because you got to win the local ridings if you want to hold government.
You spent the weekend at the convention here in Winnipeg. What was the atmosphere like?
The atmosphere was very positive, and I'd say overall optimistic. People generally, the chatter before the vote came down, a lot of people were projecting the Lewis victory. Of course, that came to pass in quite a commanding fashion. He won 56% of the vote, give or take, on the first ballot there. So this really cements it as the Avi Lewis party, and the delegates there behind that. They selected a slate of candidates for their party executive, so president, vice president, and treasurer, aligned with Lewis's vision. So it is now very much the Avi Lewis party at the convention. And people think that they're talking about the excitement that more young people were coming into the party and joining the party with this campaign. So ideally, they can turn those people into future volunteers, down the road organizers, and hopefully have a stronger ground game whenever the next election comes around.
We saw Premier Wab Kinew at the convention, and of course, a very popular premier in this country and NDP government here, several other provinces as well. What do you think the provincial wings of the NDP will think of Avi's victory?
Well, we'll start on the more contrarian ones. Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi put out a public statement within minutes of Lewis's victory, being announced, distancing himself from the federal NDP. He says that Mr. Lewis's priorities are not Alberta priorities, in reference to his stance on fossil fuels, as I mentioned with the LEAP manifesto earlier. In Avi's campaign here, he did say that he would firmly oppose any new pipeline development, any new liquefied natural gas terminals, and really push for a rapid expansion of green and renewable energy across the country. Mr. Nenshi was saying that just because you're a member of the Alberta NDP, that doesn't mean you're a member of the federal party, contrary to how most NDP branches work, where it's one membership, one party, regardless if it's provincial or federal. So Mr. Nenshi putting that distance between himself, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith already using Mr. Lewis's stances on energy as a cudgel to hit Nenshi with. So we're going to see some tension there. Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck sent a letter to Mr. Lewis yesterday saying she will not meet with him until he publicly reverses his stance on the energy sector. In her letter, she calls it ideological and unrealistic, and says that if the NDP wants to be a party of workers, it needs to respect the jobs that people have now, not just the jobs that he thinks they ought to have. So some real tension there, especially from the leader of the Saskatchewan NDP, the birthplace of the CCF, which became the NDP down the role and birthplace of Tommy Douglas, the famed NDP leader and father of universal health care in Canada. So some tension there, but we did hear from Premier Canoe, who, as you mentioned, was on stage with Mr. Lewis yesterday, and he was asked about these tensions. He says that the NDP, there's always going to be regional disagreements on policy. That's not new for the party, but he says they can still support each other as New Democrats as long as they're all agreeing on the same core issues as defending public health care, public education, and trying to uplift people through social services. So there's going to be some tough conversations that have to happen between the federal and provincial parties if they want to iron out this tension, which is going to be one of the first major challenges that Mr. Lewis faces in his fledgling leadership.
About a minute remaining. What's his first challenge then? Not having a seat?
That's not as big a challenge as you would think right now. I talked to Mr. Lewis about this just about a week ago now, and he said he's in no real rush to get into the House of Commons because he says he wants to focus on your house and not the House. So expect to see Avi Lewis starting to travel the country after this, trying to introduce himself to a broader swath of Canadians and get more people on side with the offer he's putting in the table to try to build that support for the NDP to try to win more seats in the House of Commons. I was speaking with former Hamilton MP Matthew Green the other day, and he was saying that, it makes sense for Avi to focus on not being in Ottawa right now. He talked about how when he was an MP, when the NDP had official party status, increased visibility in question period, time in committees to help shape government policy. He'd come back home to Hamilton and people weren't very connected with what was happening in Ottawa. So really there is some decent strategy there on the NDP's part to have Lewis not necessarily rush to try to get a seat in the House of Commons, because I think he'll be much more visible and be able to better connect with people outside of Ottawa than being tied to Parliament.
Thanks for this.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
David Baxter is a reporter with the Canadian Press. We reached him after the convention here in Winnipeg. 2 to 4 centimeters of snow on the way for the city of Winnipeg, -5 in downtown right now. Still to come, when you listen to the radio, you may expect to hear English or French. Coming up, we'll tell you about another language that is coming to Manitoba's airwaves. And we'll also speak to a reporter in Armenia who has been interviewing Iranian refugees about the war in their country. But we begin with your CBC local news next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -5, last day of March, and yes, there's snow in the forecast. In western Manitoba, a special weather statement, up to 15 centimeters is possible. In Winnipeg, anticipating 2 to 4 today and another couple on the way tonight. Manitoba's Premier says he's not concerned about how the new federal NDP leader will affect his popularity. Wab Kinew says he looks forward to working with Avi Lewis. Lewis was acclaimed NDP leader after the first ballot yesterday. Kinew says he and Lewis may have different opinions, but they share the same values.
Here, Poilievre says that he supports unions. The provincial Tories say that they hate unions. Are you guys all going to fan out and write division in the Conservative ranks? No, right? Same with the Liberals. So when progressives have debate, have differences of opinion, we should view that as a sign of a healthy party.
Kinew says he's already started some discussions with the new leader, including on developing the Port of Churchill. Now, some federal NDP members say their new leader will bring the change the party needs. Lewis ran on what he described as an anti-capitalist campaign. Volunteer Nicholas Wheeler-Hughes has been backing Lewis since he first ran for office in 2021, and he says the work is just getting going.
I think that there are going to be a lot of Liberal voters, Conservative voters who maybe felt disconnected from the NDP. I actually think his message is going to bring those people back.
Now, other provincial NDP leaders have criticized Lewis for his views on moving away from oil and gas. A Winnipeg woman whose sister died after waiting hours at an emergency room worries the province isn't doing enough to prevent it from happening again. Sherry Ross's sister, Stacy, died in January. Her death is now being reviewed by the province. But Ross wonders if the government will act on any of the recommendations coming from this review. Reviews were launched for 6 people in 2025 who died also after facing delays in care before Ross's sister died.
Once a critical incident is done, that there has to be some follow through with it because they've done it so many times and nothing changes.
Ross wants the review of her sister's death to look into nurse ratios and hospital protocol changes. Manitoba's health minister says the province is increasing staff and improving patient flow to reduce wait times. A trans refugee says the province won't legally change her name because it doesn't accept the ID. The Manitoba government told Martha Hoja it only accepts requests from citizens and permanent residents. It says any other document could create oversight issues for immigration officials. Human rights lawyer Susan Ursel says that explanation doesn't hold water.
It's discriminatory, and it's discriminatory against a refugee on the basis of their gender identity and their gender expression and potentially their national and ethnic origin.
Ursel says it could be a violation of her charter rights as well as protections under Manitoba's Human Rights Code. She says the code applies to everyone, not just Manitobans. U.S. President Donald Trump is sounding positive, speaking with reporters on Air Force One, that Iran is prepared to allow some oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz.
They gave us as a tribute, I don't know, I can't define it exactly, but they gave us, I think out of a sign of respect, 20 boats of oil, big boats of oil, going through the Hormuz Strait.
Trump says those big boats are set to sail through the strait beginning today. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Winnipeg man is traumatized after suffering skull fractures and gashes to his hands and back when he was attacked last week. Raleigh Walker was picking up pizza on Selkirk Friday afternoon when 2 men tried to steal it from him. He says they choked and punched him, hit him in the head with a hatchet, but he managed to escape and ran until he found first responders nearby.
I was just spewing blood out of my mouth and skull, and I was extremely worried I wasn't going to make it. And I was actually told that if the fire truck wasn't already in the vicinity, I wouldn't have made it from blood loss.
The 23-year-old says he is now scared to walk alone outside and has had trouble sleeping because of the pain and the mental toll from the attack. Mourning a woman who died after being hit by a semi-truck on the weekend. A large group in Winnipeg's North End. Nadine Goosehead Sr. was hit by a semi at Dufferin in Maine on Saturday. The 50-year-old sister, Kim Scott, says she will remember her as being full of love.
She was a very strong woman. Loved everybody. Loved to laugh, sing. Was always there when you needed a helping hand.
Goosehead Sr. was originally from Bloodvein First Nation. She had 4 daughters and recently had become a grandmother. And a Winnipeg court has ordered a former chiropractor to stop doing chiropractic work after he was found to be practicing without a license. The Manitoba Chiropractors Association filed a court application to prohibit Peter Rutherford from practicing. A judge issued an order this month prohibiting him for what he called falsely pretending to be a chiropractor. The order's in effect until October 2029. Court documents refer to numerous prior disciplinary actions against Rutherford. In a recent letter to the regulatory body, Rutherford denies the allegations. He says he was not representing himself as a chiropractor. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
All right, let's check in with Abby. I know we're watching weather system that is definitely impacting the western part of our province and is going to bring the city of Winnipeg eventually 2 to 4 centimeters.
That's true. We do have this weather statement in effect as a late season snowfall pushes through southwestern Manitoba. We're anticipating for the region about 10 to 15 centimeters of snow in the Westman and Parkland regions. That's into Tuesday morning, and this system is going to be, the concern here is it will make morning commutes really difficult with the heavy snow and reduced visibility that you'll be noticing, like the Dauphin area already. We're already seeing that system there. It's coming in from the Saskatchewan end, so it's present there. You will notice it on the highway if you're in the Riding Mountain area and all the way tracking it towards Minnedosa. At this time, we are feeling the impact of that system, and it's going to stay with us into tomorrow morning. So be prepared for this accumulation, though it's a short window, but it's going to really make commute uncomfortable for a whole bunch of people. For Winnipeg right now, we're waking up to cloudy skies. The snow is expected to start sometime this morning also for the city. We're anticipating freezing drizzle somewhere in between. Current temperatures around -5 at the Forks and at the airport. We're expecting a high of -2 today, but the temperature is really going to stick around that. It's locking in at -5 today. I just say it might get to -2 and then go back to -5, but that's where we'll be for most of the day. And across the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures already at this time hovering between -3 and -7 as that system moves in from the east. In the Pembina Valley region, Modern Winkler to the Morris, we're looking at -3 at this time. Anticipating 2 to 4 centimeters of snow in the Brandon area, -5 at this time. We should see about 10 centimeters of accumulation once the system comes through. And in the Parkland region, we're looking at temperatures around -7 also, anticipating that's similar accumulation of snow, about 10 to 15 coming your way once the system comes through. While up north, we're still seeing temperatures close to the -30s this morning. It's and the wind chill is still being felt. The powerful influence, we're looking at -22s in that area. While for Thompson, Gillam, we're seeing a light snow there. Temperatures hovering between -11 and -16. Tudula Lake and Churchill, frigid at this time. We're seeing -21 to -26, and the wind chill close to -40. So there's still a risk of frostbite as we travel towards Churchill this morning. So, but the concern today is Western Manitoba is bracing for this heavy snow that's coming our way. Winnipeg, we're not going to be spared. We're going to get about 2 centimeters also.
Yeah, and with wind gusting around 50 kilometers an hour,
it's going to whip things around.
Yeah. And that brings us to May McKillop, who is our show director and is also monitoring traffic. A bit of a calm before the storm right now. This may wind up being a problem for our friends on Information Radio or Up to Speed, but again...
Yes.
It's
one of those days where I'm going to be keeping an eye on the
For sure.
conditions throughout the show as that snow starts to come down. I'm seeing some light snow conditions, as we heard from Abby. So I'm kind of just keeping my eyes on the highways right now. Things are looking okay out the window downtown here in Winnipeg at Portage and Spence. Traffic is moving along swimmingly, I might say. However, the highways, I'm looking mainly around Western Canada, southwestern Canada right now, through Brandon, Minnedosa, Riding Mountain National Park up to Dauphin. And I'm curious how the highways are. Perhaps you're listening out from the roads and you wanted to call and give us an update so we can let your fellow commuters know. That number to call is 204-788-3093.
Hallie Cotnam is with us now to check our business report. Good morning, Hallie.
Good morning, Julie. Nice to hear you.
31 days into the war into the Middle East, as I'll I'll confess here, I have an electric vehicle, so the price of gas. Every once in a while, I go, "Oh, is that what people are paying?" So gas
right?
has certainly been more expensive, and oil is ticking higher. What is the latest?
Well, I've been following this morning. Brent crude up around 2.75% to 115.33. Meanwhile, as you heard Heather mention in the local news, President Donald Trump saying on Air Force One last night that Iran is going to allow 20 tankers through the Strait of Hormuz today to, quote, prove they're serious. But in a different interview that President Trump did with the Financial Times yesterday, he says his preferred option in Iran would be to, quote, take the oil, comparing it to U.S. actions in Venezuela, perhaps. Trump says he's considering seizing Iran's Karg Island, which is a key fuel hub that handles 90% of Iran's oil exports. Meanwhile, for its part, Iran warning it will rain fire on American troops if they launch a ground invasion. The Washington Post is now reporting that the Pentagon is preparing for weeks of ground operations in Iran. And that news had Democratic senators like Andy Kim saying this on Meet the Press yesterday.
I want to take a moment to make a direct call to President Trump and congressional Republicans saying we cannot have American troops on the ground in Iran. This is going to be such a risky operation. And for what purpose?
The war, of course, has caused the largest oil disruption in history. Strikes targeting oil and gas facilities have also triggered higher gas prices. Certainly seeing it where I am. A gallon of gas in the U.S. yesterday, on average, cost $3.98. Across most of Canada, prices are between $1.70 and $1.80. Lower in Alberta, but higher in BC. I'm not sure where Winnipeg falls.
Down like probably 167, I think, is what I saw on my way in today. So better if you can shop around and get some of those deals. So
fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do not have a great palate, so I probably wasn't the target demo. But it turns out some of us aren't so interested in eating bugs.
Yeah, maybe I'm rethinking this as a breakfast topic. But yeah, the Canadian government is out, and that's taxpayers, potentially tens of millions of dollars because of what some people are describing as the yuck factor. And we're talking about crickets. They're a low-carbon protein source. They require less farmland than traditional livestock. So there was this massive cricket farm in London, Ontario, and it was supposed to be a slam dunk. 150,000 square foot facility designed to house billions of insects and produce millions of kilograms of protein every year. Lots of buzz at first, in fact, attracting private investors from all over the world, but also racking up tens of millions of dollars in federal loans and grants. It went bust last year, and it was sold for an undisclosed amount of money. Our colleague Colin Butler is reporting on this story and about why the market for eating insects never fully materialized, at least not in North America. As you probably know, people elsewhere in the world eat insects. But Colin talked to experts at the University of Guelph who say North Americans have a deep-seated discomfort when it comes to eating insects. And added to that, the price. A pound of cricket powder, so 454 grams of it, could retail for up to $49.99, more than even some premium cuts of beef on a per-pound basis. So who is left holding the bag, Julie? Well, court documents show Farm Credit Canada was owed roughly $41 million at the time of the receivership of this company. And Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada says it provided this company $8.5 million, most of that money still outstanding.
Okay, but you're not going to leave us with, I guess, a bad taste in the mouth.
Yes.
This is definitely palatable for most of us. A more appetizing story with a sugar high, but turning into a sugar heist.
Right. More than 12 tons of Kit Kat bars have been stolen in Italy. Thieves made off with a truck carrying more than 400,000 bars after it left a factory in Italy en route to Poland. A spokesperson for Kit Kat's parent company, Nestle, confirmed the theft. And it seems to me like the company's comms people are having a bit of fun because they issued a statement saying, we've always encouraged people to have a break with Kit Kat, but it seems thieves have taken the message too literally, which reminded me of this kind of moldy oldie earworm. Take a listen.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Give me a break.
So this major candy crime is happening in the lead up to Easter, which the company says, at least it initially said, that could mean shortages for customers. But Nestle has come out saying, no, we've got enough parts to go around.
Okay. Thank goodness for that. Well, drilling down on all of the very important stories ahead of Easter, Hallie Cottenham, thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Hallie Cottenham with Business News. 6:45 now, 15 minutes before 7 o'clock. I'm Julie Buckingham, sitting in today for Marcy Marcusa. A new Punjabi radio station is launching in Winnipeg next week. It will start broadcasting music and news in the language. Connect Media Network also has stations in Surrey, Edmonton, as well as Calgary. That is what Connect Winnipeg 1290 AM host Prachi Saini told CBC's Gavin Axelrod.
Hi, I would be working as a talk show host here. My show would be 1 to 2 in the afternoon, which in Punjabi otherwise is known as Dopair Wala show. The deliverables to my role are actually, my role is quite dynamic and I believe it would evolve over time, but the main thing that we would be doing here from the mic here is addressing issues for the community that have long been not even looked at. There was not enough light to a lot of issues that should have been addressed long ago. That is why Connect actually felt that Winnipeg now needs a voice. It's been long and we could have gone to a lot of cities, but Winnipeg needed it. It was a need of the hour in Winnipeg. That is why we're here in Winnipeg and we will be addressing community issues. And in community issues, it'll be an amalgamation of a lot of things, from molestations to extortions and everything right now that's going on in the community. I have been in Winnipeg for quite some time now, and I've always felt that there are things that should be talked about. People should be held accountable. People should have to answer, but there was not an authentic voice, not the real voice, not a journalistic angle to some things that we could do, because you can always go ahead and ask questions, but when there's a journalistic angle to it, your questions have weight. So that's how I would conclude what my role here would be.
What kind of responsibility do you feel like hosting a show and kind of being like a reporter, I guess, like being that kind of voice for the community?
I think the answer lies in your question. The voice. Being a voice is what we need right here for now. People do not know who to reach if they're feeling exploited. The very thing that I feel, I actually feel that it's very bad on our part as well. People do not know who to reach and how to reach. So through the medium here that we have, we are going to tell people about the rights that they have, who they need to reach, how they need to reach, and what are the different levels they need to reach if they are, not being answered at the beginning level. So that is how we are going to go ahead and let people know of how they need to proceed if they are suffering through something. And yes, if we encounter something in that part, we encounter extortions for that case, or if someone's been exploited at their place of work, we let people know what their rights are and how they can address it. So yeah.
Connect Winnipeg 1290 AM host Prachi Saini, a new Punjabi radio station coming to Winnipeg.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
11 minutes before 7 o'clock, -5 in downtown Winnipeg outside our Studio 15 window. And we can tell you 2 to 4 centimeters on the way for the city of Winnipeg, and a special weather statement in effect for areas like Brandon, Neepawa, Carberry, Treeherne, Killarney, Melita, Verdon, Dauphin, Minnedosa, as well as other areas with up to 10 to 15 centimeters possible today. Well, as we have been telling you that it is now week 5 of the U.S.-Israel war against Iran with no immediate end in sight. The White House says it's in negotiations with Iran using Pakistan as an intermediary. So far, little progress. The two sides reportedly far apart, and U.S. President Donald Trump sending thousands of Marines and airborne soldiers to the region. Meanwhile, there is a flow of people out of the country. Some of these refugees are ending up in nearby Armenia, and that is where we have reached our next guest. Alessandra Hay is a reporter with Iran War Dispatches. She is based in Armenia. Good morning. Thank you for doing this.
Good morning, guys. Nice to meet you.
What can you tell us about the latest developments over the weekend?
So over the weekend, we saw some pretty big developments. We saw that the U.S. Troops from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit arrived in the region. That brings the total number of U.S. troops in the region to 50,000, which is 10,000 more than we would usually have. But I think what's really concerning people is the capabilities and the technology and vessels that these troops are traveling with and what that could indicate for the war going forward. So these troops are really capable at seizing territory and essentially invading. The vessels that they're carrying can launch aircraft, can launch watercraft, and they're highly skilled. And so I think that's really concerning for people because it raises this question again about, a potential U.S. ground invasion of Iran, which obviously is incredibly concerning. And I think particularly people are worried about the U.S. invading Harg Island, which is an island in Iran, which is critical for oil infrastructure. It has critical, refining infrastructure and facilities there. The U.S. previously destroyed the defenses on that island, the military infrastructure, and said that they didn't touch the oil infrastructure there. And so the island now is very defenseless. And Trump recently spoke about considering invading Harg Island again. We also saw the Houthis joining the war, which, given their proximity to the Bab al-Mandab Strait and their previous attacks on ships in that strait, that is really concerning because it could further disrupt the flow of oil around the world and really cause even more chaos than it has to the global economy.
You're interviewing Iranian refugees who are crossing over into Armenia. What are they telling you?
They're saying, a lot of different things. I think the people that have recently crossed over, often they're very paranoid. They, were living in a country going through an internet blackout, also going through bombardment, and also under a government that they are really afraid of. So I think it's varied what people are saying. I think there's a lot of different threats to their life in Iran. But yeah, I think those are the main things that I'm hearing from people.
What are they saying about the U.S. bombardments in particular in Iran?
I think it's mixed. I think at the beginning of the war, there were, celebrations in Armenia that I went to when Khamenei died, when, Largiani was killed. There were, people were celebrating it, it was recently Iranian New Year. I saw a lot of flyers in the Iranian, group chats that I'm a part of, for Iranians in Armenia. And I saw a lot of them being like, come celebrate, the new year. And also the fact that, the regime is being destroyed. So there is that. But I think people are also so scared for their families and they are, really upset about they are really heartbroken and mourning people that they've lost. So I think it is mixed. And yeah, that's what I would say that I've heard.
Here in Canada, if we experience a short blackout with our cell phones, we're up in arms, and people are dealing with this all over the world. But in particular, in Iran, how are the internet blackouts really complicating things?
I think there's a lot of different ways that they're complicating it. I think, number one, people can't reach out to their families. So, during a war, that's terrifying because you don't know if your family is safe. It also stops you from being able to protect yourself. Before this, I was a reporter in Ukraine and, the internet was crucial to me staying safe and me knowing, what was coming at me, just staying up to date and, keeping track of attacks. Without that, that's really terrifying. I think also it's interesting to consider the impact that not having information from the outside world has. Because I had, for example, one conversation with somebody in Tehran who had kind of bought a VPN. That's how you can get around the internet blackout. There's, you can buy VPNs or they're called white SIM cards. And so through these, you can circumvent the shutdown. only temporarily though, and they're really expensive. And we had connected during the protests, and he messaged me and he said, "What is the world saying about us?" And I just thought that was such a like heartbreaking experience to think of, that you're living under this bombardment. This whole conversation about negotiations that we're all having on here is not reaching a lot of people in Iran. And they might get a snippet of it, but they can't, keep up to date with it. They're going days without connecting to the internet, weeks sometimes. So I think that those are the main things that I picked up on.
Alessandra, thank you for doing this morning. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Alessandra Hay is a reporter with the online publication Iran War Dispatches. We have reached her in Armenia. Coming up after World Report, we will hear from a man who spent over a decade behind bars, but is now using his lived experience to help others and be the person he needed when he was younger.
Empowering everyone else too is going to be something that is going to be a part of my journey, and it's just a beautiful thing, right?
That feature conversation in 2 parts still to come here on Information Radio. Let's check in at our local news desk where we find Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's premier says he looks forward to working with the federal NDP leader, Avi Lewis, proclaimed party leader in Winnipeg yesterday. His proposals to completely transition away from fossil fuels have been criticized by other provincial NDP leaders on the prairies. Wab Canoe says he and Lewis have different opinions, but he's not concerned. He says they share similar values on healthcare and education. And a refugee says red tape is preventing her identity from being recognized. Martha Hoja is a trans woman from Ukraine. She's been trying to get the province to remove her birth name from official documents. The Manitoba government told Hoja it will only accept requests from citizens and permanent residents. I'll be back with more on that story and other Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Still ahead, we'll have Sports Report. I was watching a lot of sports on the weekend. Blue Jays got the brooms out. First series. Plan the party. Paul McGowan will be by with our latest in sports. If you're seeing something in traffic, certainly let us know. May McKillop is, I would say, standing by, but she's actually sitting. So 204-788-3093. As far as the weather goes, we are dealing with the system, particularly in Westman right now. Special weather statement has been issued for a wide swath of that region. Brandon, Neepawa, Carberry, Treeherne, Killarney, Pilot Mound, Manitou, Melita, Verdun, Dauphin, Minnedosa, Riding Mountain, St. Rose, McCreary, and Alonza, as well as Gladstone. 10 to 15 centimeters of snow is expected today. For the city of Winnipeg, 2 to 4 centimeters. Right now it is -5 degrees. Just ahead, World Report.
I'm Steve Dangle Glynn. I am a hockey YouTuber, broadcaster, and podcast host. I am defending Searching for Terry Punch-Out by Tyler Hellard in this year's Canada Reads, One Book to Build Bridges. Hockey novels are in right now. Finding a way to reconnect with your community, finding a way to reconnect with your family. Sometimes a bridge needs to be built from both sides.
Canada Reads. It all starts April 13th. For more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
This is World Report.
Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. U.S. President Donald Trump says talks with Iran are progressing and that it has agreed to allow more oil ships through the Strait of Hormuz. But Trump still isn't ruling out putting U.S. boots on the ground. This while the widening war in the Middle East continues with strikes in Israel, Iran, and Lebanon this morning. Megan Williams has the latest from Dubai.
Another overnight of strikes in the Middle East war, now in its fifth week, with President Donald Trump on board Air Force One last night saying negotiations with Iran are going well.
We're weeks ahead of schedule.
Trump went on to claim the attacks against Iran have already brought regime change.
One regime was decimated, the next regime is mostly dead, and the third regime is a whole different group of people. So I would consider that regime change.
Trump then said that Iran has agreed to allow 20 ships carrying oil through the Strait of Hormuz, describing the gesture as a sign of respect. Tehran has not confirmed that. Trump also told the Financial Times his favorite outcome in Iran would be to take the oil, preferably, he said, by seizing Karg Island, the hub through which 90% of Iran's crude oil passes. Markets, though, aren't waiting to see how it plays out. Crude oil has climbed above $115 a barrel this morning, on track for its steepest monthly rise on record. Israel says this morning it is striking military infrastructure across Tehran, with Iran launching missiles at Israel. Here in the Gulf, Bahrain sounded its missile alert silence twice, and loud explosions could be heard here in Dubai after 3 this morning. Megan Williams, CBC News, Dubai.
And the war, of course, pushing gas prices higher. CAA this morning saying the national average is $172.3 per litre. Australian President Anthony Albanese is giving the country's drivers a break, cutting taxes on gas and diesel by half.
We're making fuel cheaper because we understand that Australians are under serious pressure. However, we really also want to encourage Australians who can to take public transport to help save fuel for the areas and industries that need it.
That gas reduction is set to last 3 months and is expected to cost the government $1.75 million US. Here at home, a Winnipeg man is taking WestJet to court. He says the airline canceled his flight and denied compensation, citing safety reasons. But he did a little more digging and found out there was much more to the story. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
This is the one that went to Kelowna.
Rocky Neufeld is poring over flight records he obtained for his fight against WestJet. The Winnipeg man was sitting on a plane in Edmonton, headed to Fort McMurray, when he says a WestJet employee told everyone they had to get off. The aircraft was needed for another route. But shortly after, WestJet sent Neufeld an email claiming a different reason for cancellation.
They said it was mechanical issues.
Under federal rules, airlines don't have to pay passengers when they cancel a flight for maintenance that's safety-related. So WestJet denied Neufeld's compensation claim. He took the airline to small claims. In its defense, WestJet submitted a maintenance record showing Neufeld's plane did indeed need repair. But flight records show WestJet swapped in that broken plane 8 minutes before canceling Neufeld's flight, then used the original plane for a different route. Neufeld says in confidential settlement talks, a WestJet lawyer admitted to the last-minute plane switcheroo.
It was just wrong.
Air passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács says he strongly opposes people breaking a confidentiality agreement, but also says Neufeld's case is clear proof WestJet pulled a fast one.
When you tell a consumer this aircraft broke down, but in fact the aircraft actually was elsewhere, that's fraud.
WestJet declined to answer any questions about this case or another similar case where the company swapped planes last minute, then claimed unplanned maintenance required for safety and denied compensation again. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Australian police believe they have shot dead a suspect accused of killing 2 officers. Desi Freeman has not been seen for 7 months since he allegedly opened fire on a group of police officers who came to his home near Melbourne to serve a warrant. Mike Bush is the police commissioner in Victoria State. He says this manhunt ended with a 3-hour standoff at a rural property.
Should it be confirmed that the deceased is Freeman, this brings closure to what was a tragic and terrible event.
Hundreds of police officers have been on the hunt for Freeman since last August. Well, it's Avi Lewis's first day on the job as leader of the federal New Democrats. He's promising to bring the party back to life after a dismal showing in last year's election. Marina von Stackelberg has more now on the challenges that lie ahead for Lewis.
Thanks, everyone.
The election of Avi Lewis marks a political shift to the left for Canada's NDP. The new leader is a self-described anti-capitalist. He wants publicly owned grocery stores and banks, large-scale government housing, and the end of fossil fuel expansion.
The NDP will start winning again because we will become that beacon to the 99%.
Lewis won decisively, taking 56% of the vote. His campaign was galvanized by a grassroots group of activists and young people. Voter James Newman says under Lewis, the NDP will know what it stands for.
People were saying this convention was going to be a funeral. It's not. It's a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Lewis has support from the older generation, too. He's backed by Libby Davies, a longtime MP and prominent figure in the party.
Well, it does remind me of the convention where Jack Layton got elected. There was the same sense of buoyancy and change.
But that change is not sitting well with provincial NDP leaders in Saskatchewan and Alberta. They were quick to criticize his policies as ideological and unrealistic. Now that Lewis has won, he'll face a whole new set of challenges. The party is $13 million in debt and only has 6 MPs. Lewis needs to win his own seat in the House of Commons and then win over Canadians. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Your heart health may be taking a toll on your brain health. That's at the core of new guidelines for Canadian doctors published this morning in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Researchers are recommending better protection for both major organs in an effort to reduce the risk of dementia. CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa has that story.
I went from normal and healthy to not being able to move any of my left side, not being able to speak.
At 38 years old, Patrice Lindsay had a stroke caused by a blood clot in her brain, something she was at higher risk for because of a hole in her heart she was born with.
That really started getting me thinking about the connection between the heart and the brain.
Now at 62, she's used her lived experience to help draft new health recommendations, which aim to lower the risk of dementia in people with heart conditions.
I think many people aren't aware that if they have heart disease, they are potentially at risk for having a stroke or cognitive impairment.
Jody Edwards is director of the University of Ottawa's Brain and Heart Nexus Research Program. She hopes 11 new recommendations she co-authored will increase doctors' awareness. They range from checking for dementia in patients with an irregular heart rhythm to encouraging vaccinations in older adults like flu and shingles, which could lower their risk of dementia.
It will help providers identify things earlier and initiate treatment earlier.
This is a good step forward.
Geriatric Dr. Samir Sinha says more could have been included under these recommendations.
I would also be more inclusive about mentioning the importance of preventing and treating diabetes, for example.
But Sinha says the greater the awareness, the sooner they can get started on prevention. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
What an icon. Joni Mitchell performing Big Yellow Taxi at last night's Junos with the help from some friends. Mitchell is the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. She's just the third person to be awarded the honor. And another big honor, the International Achievement Award, went to this Toronto artist.
Probably be a waste of your time, but who knows?
That's Daniel Caesar, also taking home Contemporary R&B Recording of the Year for Son of Spurgey. The album is named after his father, who is also featured in one of the songs. And the Beaches won Group of the Year for the third year in a row. And there was also a surprise performance from this band. Indeed, that's the distinct sound of Rush. This was the group's first public performance with their new drummer, Annika Niles. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Bit of a tough act to follow when it's Rush. Good morning, everyone. Glad you're with us. I'm Julie Buckingham in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Welcome to Monday morning. Maybe you're moving a little bit slower. Maybe you're off with the kids. -5 outside our downtown studios in Winnipeg. -6 and snowing in Brandon. -11 in the snow in Thompson as well. Abby has your full forecast in just a moment. Still to come, a man found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, spent over a decade behind bars, joins us to tell us his story of getting out of gang life and how he found connection through his Cree culture. It's a story you do not want to miss. Now let's head to our news center. Check in with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, some NDP supporters from Manitoba say the new federal leader can unite the party. Brandon University delegate Kirsten Garbutt was in Winnipeg for the party's federal convention over the weekend. Garbutt thinks Avi Lewis's policies resonated with young people. She adds he now has more opportunities to visit and learn about the prairies and issues that are important here. So we're going to hear more from people who were at the convention as well. A Winnipeg woman whose sister died after waiting hours at an emergency room worries the province isn't doing enough to prevent it from happening again. That story and more coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you so much, Heather Wells. And Abby, I know you've been busy watching this weather system, not really impacting us here in the city of Winnipeg yet, but our neighbors to the west certainly know about it.
If it's a larger overview, I'll tell you it's more like a late season winter punch, because it's like, we started March on the calm side, and now we're getting 15 centimeters of snow to end the month.
In like a lamb, out like a lion, I guess.
I know, that's what we're getting. But for the rest of the province, we should see cloudy conditions. The concern is more towards the southwest part of the province, from Brandon, tracking it towards the Riding Mountain area, the Parkland region. We will be seeing heavy snow tapering off tomorrow morning, but today you will deal with that, and it's going to be impacting your commute if you are in that region. We know around the Souris area, we're already seeing that snow come down. It's still light in that part, but the system is gradually moving in. I see it already towards the Melita end. We're already seeing the snow system in that part of the province. So take it easy out there. Forecast for Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region brings cloudy skies with snow beginning sometime this morning. We're going to notice the breezy conditions from the northeast. It's currently -5 still at the Forks. As mentioned earlier, we're going to be locked in at that -5 for most of the morning. Our high for today is expected to get to -2, but it's more about the snow that's going to be swinging in tonight. Across the southern region, we're seeing temperatures between -3 and -8 from Brandon all the way towards Gimli, and we're anticipating for that region, we're looking at 10 to 15 centimeters of snow pushing through the western region of the province. Up north, conditions are kind of much more clearer. We're seeing sunshine in the Churchill area at this time, but still those biting wind chills as low as -37. Big picture today, snow comes in. It's going to taper off tomorrow morning in the Westman and Parkland region, but Winnipeg, right now, we are at -5. We should get some snow also today.
Yeah, we'll be watching for that.
A decent amount of snow.
Yeah, 2 to 4 or whatever you feel like.
Don't say you've not seen it yet, but it's coming.
Okay. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
May McKillop is our show director and is also monitoring traffic. It looks like it's pretty calm so far in the city of Winnipeg, but...
So far, yeah. I got a call from Don, who's traveling along Highway number 1. He traveled from Souris and called about east of Carberry when I talked with him. He said it wasn't, the highway conditions weren't actually too bad. There was some light blowing snow west of Brandon, but so far, so good. So that was a great update. I'm keeping my eyes on the highways, mainly in southwestern Manitoba, along Highway number 1, Highway number 10, maybe 16 through Neepawa. If anyone's driving those conditions and wanted to call me, I'm standing by to take that phone call. That number to call is 204-7888-3093.
15 minutes after 7 o'clock, and next on Information Radio, we've heard many interviews here on CBC about how more supports are needed to help youth who are involved in gangs. But what happens when there's support, but it's not the support that you need? Joey Taylor, or White Traveling Buffalo Man, is originally from the Paw, Manitoba. At just 8 years old, started getting involved with gangs. Despite community and police trying to get him on the right path, Joey says it wasn't enough. At 15, convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder and spent the next decade in prison. And it was there where he found a way to get out of gang life and reconnect with his Cree culture. And now he's helping others. Joey lives in Edmonton, and CBC's Marcy Marcusa recently spoke with him for a feature interview. This is part 1.
Good morning.
So tell me a little bit about, we'll go back before we go forward, because your story has so many levels. Tell me, you started getting familiar with gangs when you were just 8. How? What was that? What did that look like for you here in Manitoba?
So, back in the 90s, it was a very different time for Indigenous people, especially in the Paw. So, with the whole Helen Betty Osborne thing being, known for how she was, brutally murdered, a lot of racism in that town. So a lot of the Indigenous communities in the surrounding area would come to the Paw, and there was a lot of racism towards that. So the ingredients were added into the pot to create this very, very toxic environment. And the Indigenous peoples didn't really have culture at the time. So what we had more so of anything was a lot of residential school impacts, a lot of lost souls, wandering the streets. So with addictions taking hold of our families and that, we, banded together and, started gangs and everything. So that's where, for myself at a young age, it was already happening way before I was even born, right? It was just taking form more and more as time went on. So being involved, at that young age was because I was sent out to play while my, mother would drink, who was addicted and still is to this day to alcohol. Just so I was out of her way. And it was like being pushed into the arms of, the gangs, and slowly getting known as I grew up in the area in the Paw called the ghetto. So it just, took shape over time, and it really was just me being a product of my environment.
And when you're little like that, what does involvement even look like in a gang, for example?
So there's a lot of different ways to do things for them and opportunities, I guess. And for myself, like I, said to a lot of people, it just takes you being, friends with the little brothers of them or anything like that. And if they see like opportunities to recruit, then they're going to like slowly get to know you. And for myself, like being called over and eventually slowly starting to sell drugs at a young age, it wasn't full time necessarily, but it was just them handing you something to run to somebody, like a baggie, like here, hand this off to that person over there, or run to this house number, so and so. They're going to give you money, just bring it back, and then giving them the money, and then them giving you a little piece of that, right? And
yeah,
not having no money myself. So it was just slowly one of those idolizations of like, man, these guys are, some people I want to be around. And, again, with residential schools taking away the family feeling like that's what I was seeking, right? That family recognition.
Tell me a little bit about how the older men, the boys, like how they made you feel. Do you remember how they made you feel when you talk about belonging and such?
They just make you feel like you're a part of something, like a family that we don't really have. And for myself, it was just wanting to please them in any way, right? Like just so I can be around them, and that feeling of being wanted and being called little brother. It was just like something that was missing from my life, because again, with everything that happened with my family, that it was just, the dynamics were just off. So the normalization of drugs, alcohol, violence. It was just normal to me at that age because of what I witnessed in my own home. And it was just a very normalized thing.
Before you went to jail, I should back up a step because I'd mentioned, and you'd shared with us that there were people in community who did try to help you, like, when you were, a little boy and when you were younger. What didn't land or what didn't work for you or connect with their approach? And who was trying to help you?
There's various numbers of people. There was a school psychologist that I was sent to for my behavioral issues, and he could see the writing on the walls, basically, just because of the way I was behaving and everything. And he tried to talk some sense into me, but again, from a professional standpoint, he couldn't relate to what I went through, or with the sexual abuse and the violence, the psychological warfare of trying to live my life right day to day. Yeah, he couldn't relate in any way, and he had no connection to getting through to me. So like I wrote him off is what I did. And me being a very young, hardened kid at that point in my life, it just wasn't for me. I've had police officers talk to me and tried to talk sense into myself too. But again, like in my whole attitude was, well, what the hell do you know? You don't know what it's like, right? I've had a principal, I guess he was technically vice principal, but talked to me as well. And he found out that I was actually a part of, the gang life and all that. And he just tried to talk sense into me, and it just nothing resonated with anybody. My own, even one or two male role models I had in my lifetime, didn't really have anything to offer in a sense to make me want to look at myself. The only thing closest, I guess, to somewhat of a change I had was sports. But even then, with the lifestyle I was living and the people I was surrounded by, it just took me away from all of that and set me on a path to, taking the gang life full time.
That is Joey Taylor, known as a Traveling Buffalo Man. He is a gang prevention and intervention consultant. In part 2 of Joey's chat with CBC's Marcy Marcusa, he'll share what happened once he went to prison in Manitoba and what finally connected with him to get him on a positive path in life. The rest of that conversation just before 8 o'clock. We want you to read between the lines as Canada reads. The debates will take place April 13th to 16th, and the books and authors are A Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt, Searching for Terry Punch-Out by Tyler Hellard, The Cure for Drowning by Logan Paylor, Foe by Ian Reid, and It's Different This Time by Joss Richard. And we want you to win the entire set of books that have been autographed by the authors. You can call our listener line or email win@cbc.ca and perform, if you will, a couple of lines from your favorite book, just like this.
Hi, my name is Erin Thomas. I'm calling about the Canada Reads contest. I'm a teacher librarian and I read all the time. But I have a favorite quote from a book that I read with students called Sophie Choir and the Last Story Guard by Canadian writer Jonathan Auxier. And it follows a 12-year-old bookmender named Sophie Choir in the city of Busselburg. And the quote is, "Stories are not mere diversions to occupy us on rainy days. They are a type of magic spell, perhaps the most powerful in existence, and their effect is to summon possibilities." Thank you.
Hello, my name is Madeline Burkhart. I'm entering the contest to read a passage from a favorite book for the 5 Canada Reads finalist copies. So I'm going to read a passage from Miriam Tave's latest book, A Truth That Is Not Peace. My sister punctuated her life with long periods of silence. It was during these periods that she begged me to write her letters about anything, my life, the days, and in that asking was an offering. She taught me how to stay alive. Silence and words, both are good, both are failures, both are efforts, and in that effort is where life lies. Not lies, or maybe it does, but where it exists. And the fragments in between are the spaces where she and I meet. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi there, my name is Jim Stewart. This is for the book contest, the reading 2 lines from your favorite book. So this book is The Little Prince, and here are the lines. Here then is a great mystery, for you who also love The Little Prince, and for me, nothing in the universe can be the same if somewhere, we do not know where, a sheep we never saw has, yes or no, eaten a rose. Thank you very much for this. Goodbye.
My name is Laura McComb. I'm in Grand Marais, Manitoba. Here is my contribution to your little contest. I want to read to you from The Gargoyle, a book by Andrew Davidson. It's his only novel. He's a Manitoba author, and this novel was published in 2008 by Random House. Accidents ambush the unsuspecting, often violently, just like love. There was a brief moment of weightlessness, a balancing point between air and earth, dirt and heaven. How strange, I thought. How like the moment between sleeping and falling, when everything is beautifully surreal and nothing is corporal. How like floating toward completion, but as often happens in that time between existing in the world and fading into dreams, this moment over the edge ended with a ruthless jerk back into awareness. Thank you.
You can enter until 10 a.m. tomorrow. We'll pick a winner April 1st. Call the listener line 204-788-3205 or win at cbc.ca. Speaking of winning, I had my broom out. Paul McGowan, and he is here now as we start with, should we plan the parade?
I mean, you can maybe start to get excited about the team.
Okay, I
mean,
get my T-shirt out. I can get my T-shirt out, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, that's a good middle ground between parade and doom and gloom. But yeah, about as good a start to the season as you can hope for the Jays. 3 games, 3 wins, 3 dominant performances by Blue Jays pitchers. Kevin Gausman and newcomer Dylan Cease, starting games 1 and 2, became the first pair of teammates in 120 years to both record at least 11 strikeouts. The last time that happened was 1901. So a historically good start on the pitching side. Also a good start for new third baseman Kazuma Okamoto, who yesterday hit his first career MLB home run. And he spoke afterward about getting to put on that Blue Jays home run jacket.
Yeah, I was always watching from afar in Japan, and I always thought that was pretty cool, thing that they were doing to celebrate the home run. So didn't think this day would come, that I would be able to put the jacket on, and that was awesome feeling, putting that jacket on. Fans have been awesome. They've been really loud. So slowly but surely getting used to that atmosphere.
He's loving the atmosphere. He's loving the jacket. I don't know if he's yet loving those cold Gatorade baths when he gets interviewed after the game. That takes some getting used to. The Jays are home for 3 more games this week. They open a series tonight with the Rockies.
Good weekend for the Raptors as well.
Yeah, back-to-back wins for them. A win Friday against New Orleans, and then a game yesterday against the Orlando Magic that saw the Raptors win by 52 points. That is the largest margin of defeat in Orlando Magic history, and it comes as they were trying to chase down the Raptors for 6th place in the Eastern Conference. Speaking of those standings, Julie, a lot of players will tell you that they're not focused on how many games ahead or behind they are. They'll tell you that they don't really look at the standings unless that player is the refreshingly honest Sandro Mamukulashvili.
I would lie if I say I don't. I think everybody goes home and checks it. We're right there. We fought throughout the whole year to kind of get ourselves in a good position. We slipped up. We came back. Now we know everything's so stacked, so the margin of error is so small, and I feel like you got to be aware of it. And I watch other games, Miami, Orlando games. It definitely tests you and may get you ready for the playoffs.
Mamu sounds as intense as every Raptors diehard fan right now. Raptors have 8 games left, including tomorrow against the Pistons.
All right, we got to hurry hard to curling.
Yeah, Matt Dunstone, a bit of a rough weekend, got wins at the start of the tournament against South Korea and Italy, and then lost back-to-back games against Scotland and the United States. They play 2 more games today, hoping for better luck. Poland this morning, and then Japan later this afternoon.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Julie.
The CBC News starts now.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:31, it is -5 in Winnipeg. There is a special weather statement concerning snowfall for western Manitoba. Here in Winnipeg, we're expecting some snow to start later this morning, just a couple of centimeters on the way. Windy today and cooler than yesterday. The last day of March, high -2. Manitoba's premier says he is looking forward to working with the new federal NDP leader. Avi Lewis was proclaimed party leader yesterday in Winnipeg at the convention. His proposals to completely transition away from fossil fuels have been criticized by provincial NDP leaders on the prairies. Rob Canoe says he and Lewis have different opinions, but he's not concerned.
We don't have to agree on everything in order to do the big things together. The big things are healthcare, education. Yeah, we can have debates, heated debates about any manner of other issues, but the values are there.
Canoe says they have already started discussing things like resource development in the north. Now, some NDP supporters from Manitoba say Avi Lewis can unite the party. Brandon University delegate Kirsten Garbutt was in Winnipeg for the federal convention. Garbutt thinks Lewis's policies resonated with younger people.
Now he's in a leadership role where he has the opportunities to come out to the prairies more often, and I think he can definitely do it. Unite us.
You can hear more on the weekend convention in Winnipeg coming up on World Report at 8. A Winnipeg woman whose sister died after waiting hours at an emergency room worries the province isn't doing enough to prevent it from happening again. Sherry Ross's sister, Stacy, died in January. Her death is being reviewed by the province. Reviews were also launched for 6 people in 2025 who died after also facing delays in care before Ross's sister passed. Ross wonders if the government will act on any recommendations coming out of these reviews.
Once a critical incident is done, that there has to be some follow through with it because they've done it so many times and nothing changes.
Ross wants the review of her sister's death to look into nurse ratios and hospital protocol changes. Manitoba's health minister says the province is increasing staff and improving patient flow to reduce wait times. A Winnipeg man says he's traumatized after he suffered skull fractures and gashes to his hands and back when he was attacked last week. Raleigh Walker was picking up pizza on Selkirk Avenue Friday afternoon when 2 men tried to steal it from him. He says they choked and punched him, hit him in the head with a hatchet, but he managed to escape and ran until he found first responders nearby.
I was just spewing blood out of my mouth and skull, and I was extremely worried I wasn't going to make it. And I was actually told that if the fire truck wasn't already in the vicinity, I wouldn't have made it from blood loss.
The 23-year-old says he is now scared to walk alone outside and has had trouble sleeping because of the pain. Remembering the victim of a pedestrian crash. Drums and singing echoing from a street corner in Winnipeg's North End yesterday. Loved ones of Nadine Goosehead Sr. in a vigil. The 50-year-old died after she was hit by a semi-truck at Dufferin and Maine on Saturday. She was originally from Bloodbane First Nation, had 4 daughters, and recently had become a grandmother. Her sister, Kim Scott, says she's shocked by her sister's death, and the family, she says, is trying to make sense of it.
She was loving. She loved everybody and fun. She was always funny. Yeah, that's how we want to remember her.
Winnipeg police say the investigation is ongoing. A refugee says red tape is preventing her identity from being recognized. Martha Hoja is a trans woman from Ukraine. She has been trying to get the province to remove her birth name from official documents, but officials won't accept the ID that officials issued to her when she arrived in Canada.
Basically, affects majority of your life in a devastating way because this misrepresentation creates a loop for harassment and transphobia.
The province says it only accepts name change requests from permanent residents or citizens. It says accepting other documents may impact asylum claims. Hoja says changing the policy shouldn't be difficult and will help other migrants who may be in a similar position. A Winnipeg court has ordered a former chiropractor to stop doing chiropractic work after he was found to be practicing without a license. The Manitoba Chiropractors Association filed a court application to prohibit Peter Rutherford from practicing. A judge issued an order this month prohibiting Rutherford from what he called falsely pretending to be a chiropractor. Court documents refer to numerous prior disciplinary actions against Rutherford, including some that resulted in suspensions of his license. In a recent letter to the regulatory body, Rutherford denies the allegations. He says he was not representing himself as a chiropractor. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Miss Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. As we continue on this morning, and Monday morning, it is a spring break. It is spring break in name only, as Abby will tell us. It feels a little bit more like winter in parts of the province.
Yes, we're having this late season snowfall pushing through the southern parts of the province. We're anticipating 10 to 15 centimeters of snow towards the Westman and the Parkland regions. This would be an event that you will notice through Tuesday morning. And this system is going to be making more like commutes difficult with the heavy snow that will be coming your way later in the day into tomorrow morning. So be prepared. Some areas might get up to 7 centimeters. Some areas might get up to 15 centimeters. And they should hold steady before it tapers off early Tuesday morning. While the northern part of the province, it's really staying dry but noticeably cold. For Winnipeg right now, we're looking at cloudy conditions. The snow is going to begin sometime this morning. We're noticing breezy winds from the northeast. Current temperature is still holding it down around -5, and this is where the morning temperatures will stay before we get to a high of -2 later today. More snow tonight. Up north, we're seeing sunshine in Churchill with frigid conditions around -26, with a wind chill around -37.
The bearer of wonderful news, Abby Adiemi.
Thank you.
In Control Room 15. May McKillop is our show director and is also watching traffic. We know that what you're hearing from the highway, not horrible yet, at least from the west.
Yeah, really not so much. I'm keeping an eye on it in case those snowy conditions start to affect the commute, but it sounds like it hasn't quite hit the roads too badly yet. A little bit in southwestern Manitoba. I got a call from driver Dawn, who drove from Souris to Carberry, and said that there was a little bit of light blowing snow just west of Brandon. Other than that, I'm not hearing of anything too bad on the highways so far, but you're going to want to plan your drive accordingly as that snow starts coming down. So check Manitoba 511 for highways and give us a call if there's anything getting in the way of the commute that you want to let your fellow commuters know about. That number to call is 204-788-3093.
The opening track, titled Sounds of Joy, from Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra's 2025 album East Meets West Connections. And I'm sure the orchestra is feeling the joy today because that album won Jazz Album of the Year at the Junos. Richard Gillis is the artistic director of Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, and he joins us in studio. Congratulations on the win.
Well, on behalf of a lot of people that were involved, I thank you.
I guess, how does it feel to say you've got a first ever Juno?
Well, it's going to take a while to sink in. I mean, in the business I'm in, it's going from one thing to another thing. As soon as you've done one concert, and I couldn't make the Junos because I had a brass concert yesterday. So I was focused on that until that was done. And the reality is that you go from one project to another, or you're always working on something. So sometimes there's not as many quiet moments that you can kind of reflect, but there will be coming up.
Yeah, and I know that there were some award recipients receiving the Juno. We'll talk about them in a minute.
Right.
And they looked absolutely stunning on the red carpet. But what were you doing at that moment? Were you at the concert still and you get a text message, or were you at home at that point?
I was running a brass day at the University of Manitoba. So I had students, I had some people coming in doing workshops and recitals. And so it was kind of just after that, I was giving someone a ride and got the message we won, which was like, getting nominated is wonderful, right? And sometimes you don't always know the process of how it goes from there. And I've been on these juries too, and it's difficult. It's because there's so many great musicians and across the country or across the province, or so I was just, there's that possibility, but it's pretty special.
You did have two members of the orchestra in Hamilton
Right.
to receive the award. Have you heard from them?
Well, I've heard from Joan.
Right.
Joan is my wife. She's the general manager. She was a reluctant general manager because a few years ago in 2017, we lost our general manager, and Joan was familiar with the organization enough that she could step in reluctantly, and the board kept her on, and she's worked very hard. I'm glad that she's able to be there. And Monica Jones is there as well, and I'm so glad that both of those people could be there for us because they represent the orchestra very well.
Tell us about the album itself, East Meets West Connections.
Well, several years ago, we began to apply for Canada Council grants to produce recordings. So we had various projects and some great projects, and it's funny how what gets noticed sometimes. Like this album was wonderful, but so were many of the others. We coming up with ideas was part of what we needed to do with recordings. And one of the projects we thought was, let's bring composers from across Canada together, not just put them on the same recording, but have them interact and produce a larger work, like a multi-movement work. So we had David Braden, Philip Cote a few years ago, both fabulous composers. And of course, then last year, we released, or 2 years ago, Christine Jensen and Jill Townsend on an East Meets West project. And actually, that recording that they did, or the suite they produced, was going to be on the same recording as this one that we just released. But this one got so large in terms of amount of time, it's almost 50 minutes. So we thought, well, we can't release them together in the same album, so we split the albums up, and so that was and we will continue to do that. We'll continue to be commissioning and getting composers from across Canada to work together, because it brings people together, and our purpose for a long time is to be a meeting place for jazz musicians across Canada. We intend, and we have been bringing guests from across Canada, but also players just to play within the band. Just to you never know what comes out of these collaborations.
It's nice symbolism for the city of Winnipeg as a meeting place, and you think about where the rivers meet, and we're sort of that bridge between East and West. So lots of symbolism there, and now you've got a statue to represent all of the hard work. I know it's in the safe hands of.
Apparently, it's
so it is a group award.
It is a group award.
What's the plan for that beautiful statue?
I have no idea. I was asked that yesterday, and maybe what we could do is do like the baseball players when they hit a home run. they've got this chain and they wear it around the neck.
That's
right?
not
So
a bad
maybe
idea.
I could pass that around. We can all take turns wearing it. But I think what we're going to have to do is give everybody a chance to have the, have
On
the
the
statue
mantle.
on the
Yeah.
mantle for a week and then pass it on to somebody else or that kind of thing.
It's a good problem to have.
I guess. Yeah.
What does the win mean for Winnipeg's jazz community?
Well, Winnipeg's jazz community is pretty vibrant. There's some fabulous players that are really connected. They really understand what the level is out there, if you want to say out there. They're connected. Ron Paley has done a lot. I point back to Ron because, he had a big band that was going and is doing so many things for so many years, and he affected so many people. And we're just trying to continue a tradition, maybe more focused on, like when I started this with Sasha Boychuk, my goal was to have a concert jazz orchestra, not a dance group, not entertainment is background entertainment, but
Front and center.
Front and center entertainment. And so we've been doing a concert series since 1997, which now seems like so long ago. But we've had fabulous concerts, and that has been our goal, and that will continue to be our goal. And so what we want to do with the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra is to rotate a number of really fine players, provide professional development, provide educational development for younger students,
Right.
just to make it. Big band is the jazz musicians' symphony orchestra. I mean, it's where we gather in large numbers. There was a time when we were just starting where jazz musicians are doing wonderful things in different places, but oftentimes not get together on the same stage. Whereas at the beginning we had 6 concerts a year. 6 times a year you could get together with, or however many concerts you played, you can get together with fellow musicians that you wouldn't see sometimes most of the year, perhaps. So that's kind of what we would like to help in terms of the jazz community.
And where can people follow the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra?
WinnipegJazzOrchestra.com.
Simple as that.
As simple as that.
You need to update the webpage now.
Do I? Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, yes.
Juno
absolutely.
Award-winning Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's something to be certainly grateful for, and it will help in our mandate and in what we're trying to do. It's not an individual award, that's for sure, because I have to mention like Larry Roy and so many great players here in town, Fabio Ragnelli, who played drums on this, and like every little piece of the puzzle kind of helped this get to where it is.
All right, let's listen to the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, Sounds of Joy. Richard Gillis, the artistic director. Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, Sounds of Joy, and once again winning Jazz Album of the Year at the Junos. Congratulations. 12 minutes now before 8 o'clock, and we are returning to a story that we started bringing you earlier this hour. Part 1 of a feature interview with Joey Taylor, also known as White Traveling Buffalo Man. Originally from the Paw, Manitoba, Joey got involved in gang life at just the age of 8 years old. His home life was turbulent, a mom addicted to alcohol, relatives struggling with the effects of residential schools. And as Joey puts it, his understanding of, quote, normal family life was absent, so he found comfort in being called little brother in the gang. And at 15, was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and then spent a decade in prison. Today, he is helping others with the kind of positive connection he himself struggled to find as a kid. This is part 2 of Joey's interview with CBC's Marcy Marcusa, and he shares what happened in prison and what put him on that positive path.
You were still young, I mean 15, but still young when you were incarcerated. What was it like being that age and finding yourself in that situation?
I was in a lot of like disbelief, but also like living a life of basically something I was bred for in a sense, because in the streets you're taught not to talk to police, you're taught not to do anything they wouldn't do in terms of like gang politics. So just going to jail was like another day. And for me, it was just like, man, like now what? You know, like what did I do? How did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a lot of like, well, I'm here now. Well, I got to live my life regardless. So I just still, you know, lived the gang life while I was in jail, and it didn't stop, right?
It was in prison that you actually had a turning point. So not at first, because you said you first went there and you were kind of down the same path and it was kind of a continuation. You're 15, it's, you know, kind of in prison, you're being tough. And was there actual a moment, a turning point in prison that turns you sort of, as you would put, down the right path?
There was honestly multiple moments of changes, right? Like I call them the seeds that were planted in my flower bed in my mind. Mind you, there's a whole slab of concrete blocking that growth, just due to the nature of who I was and you know what I was representing at the time, gang life wise. So could mention names here. Ed Naveau was definitely a factor in you know, change in terms of really questioning myself as to who I am as a person, right? And he's an Anishinaabe himself, but I'm Nehio, I'm Cree. But we still worship the same creator. We still worship the same like grandmothers and grandfathers.
And did
right?
you meet him in prison? Just or who was he?
Yeah, I met him in prison. I met him in Legacy Youth Center. Even though I was defiant, he was still there, right? And he was showing me his way of living culture, right? And introduced me to the water drum that the Anishinaabe carry, different bundles and that. So want to mention another man that was a big part of my change too, right? His name's Dave LeSwiss. He was in Edmonton Institution, Edmonton Max, they call it. And he was the very first person I opened up to talk about my abuses, my childhood traumas and everything, the adversities I faced as a young kid. Because he himself was in prison at a young, you know, age himself. I've never met anyone like him, and it was just natural for me to start talking to him and him showing us love in a way no one else has ever done inside of those walls. And I mentioned to people that even the little things count, right? That kinship.
Give me an example of a little thing. What do you mean by that?
So it might seem like a little thing to many, but to us men in there, even bringing in a flavored coffee creamer for us to drink to the culture center, right? Like a international flavor, French vanilla or whatever flavors, right? Like he would bring them in out of his own pocket. And he didn't say it or gloat about it like some people would. I bought this for my own money. He would just put it there and
he treated
tell us
you
to drink. Yeah,
he thought you were worth being treated, having a treat.
Yeah, and that's how he was as a man, right? And it was beautiful. And from what I understand about our culture, about you know, we were talking of Simon, the creator, the great grandfather's spirit won't turn his back on you. He won't, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you've done, you're always going to be welcome in that circle, right? And for me, I was ashamed of everything I've done because like I just really couldn't see myself fitting into something like that. But as the great grandfathers and grandmothers, they guided me back to that circle. My past doesn't define me. It helps make me into the person I am, but it doesn't tell me who I'm going to be tomorrow.
So because you're talking about your past not defining you, for those that missed the first part of the story, when you were, in prison, you were sentenced for 3 counts of first-degree murder. I wonder, in order to move forward and do the work that you're talking about and the kind of work you do today and that inner work to feel that you're worth it, right? That you can connect culturally. What did that mean? Did it mean coming to terms with your past first before you could move forward to do that work? And how did you do that?
So there's a lot of inner journeys you have to take in order to get to that crossroads, I guess. For myself, it was really, diving deep and dealing with the traumas that I've endured as a child, especially the sexual abuse, because that robbed me of a lot of things as a child. It took away that innocent child innocence, and it hardened me into what the world really looked like. So a lot of that, crystallized over the years. And when I started to talk about it, publicly and in sharing circles, it really had me in fear of being judged and really, talking about being vulnerable, right? Being vulnerable in public. And that was a tough thing for me to do. Now it just comes naturally, right? Because it's part of healing and really looking at everything you've done from your past too. Like if we're looking at today, from back then to now, I have a really strong sense of direction and guidance as to what I want to do with, my past experiences and share that with the people that really need to hear that. Because again, we speak about that young Joey who didn't want any help from anybody because they didn't understand how to connect with them. Like, you don't know what it's like not to have food in your fridge. You don't know what it's like, to go through what I went through, or have a family that drinks almost every day just so they can, quell their pains because of what residential schools did to them, right? Now you have somebody right here, right now, wanting to help those brothers and sisters that are seeking that, right? That kinship.
That's Joey Taylor, known as Traveling Buffalo Man. He is a gang prevention and intervention consultant. He now lives in Edmonton, is a dad of 3. If you would like to read more about his work, check out Joey Taylor Speaks on Instagram. His new website will be live soon. It is secondshot.ca. It is 3 minutes now before 8 o'clock. We have some very cloudy skies right now, -5 degrees. Coming up, ever had a flight canceled due to unscheduled maintenance issues so you don't get compensation? Our Go Public team found out there may be more to the story. Erica Johnson joins us with the Shell Game story. Let's check in with Heather Wells with your headlines before World Report.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's Premier says he looks forward to working with the federal NDP's new leader, Avi Lewis, proclaimed yesterday at the NDP convention. His proposals to completely transition away from fossil fuels have been criticized by other provincial NDP leaders on the prairies. Wab Canoe says he and Lewis have different opinions, but he's not concerned. He says they do share the same values on healthcare and education. A Winnipeg woman whose sister died after waiting hours at an ER worries the province isn't doing enough to prevent it from happening again. Sherry Ross's sister, Stacy, died in January. Her death is included, among others, being reviewed by the province. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We will hear just ahead from local NDP supporters about what they want to see from the newly elected NDP leader, Avi Lewis. Make sure you stay with us after World Report.
On cue.
I'm Garvey Bailey in for Tom Power. The actor Sterling K. Brown once lost out on playing Atticus Finch in a production of To Kill a Mockingbird, and it changed everything. He'll be here to talk about quitting finance to pursue his passion and how acting has helped him discover his life's purpose.
Something that feels so good.
Q this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The NDP has a new leader, but it is still a party without official party status, with a handful of MPs in Ottawa. And so we'll speak with that new leader about what the party needs to do to change and become more relevant. It's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Angie Seth. Rescue workers dig through the rubble of a building in the northern Israeli city of Haifa. Officials say it's one of several waves of overnight strikes launched by Iran and its proxies. Israel launched its own overnight barrage, striking targets in Iran and Lebanon. Despite the escalation, U.S. President Donald Trump says talks are progressing. I'm now joined by CBC's Willie Lowry, who's in Washington following this story for us. So, Willie, let's first start with Donald Trump and what we're hearing from him.
Angie, U.S. President Donald Trump once again reiterating that the U.S. military operations against Iran were progressing ahead of schedule, but also that negotiations with Tehran were ratcheting up. Speaking with reporters last night while aboard Air Force One, the president said a deal was potentially within reach. Trump adding that Iran was offering an olive branch in the form of allowing additional oil tankers to transit through the Strait of Hormuz, this after they allowed 10 through last week.
They gave us 20 boatloads of oil, and that starts being shipped tomorrow. We're having very good meetings, both directly and indirectly.
But it's still unclear who exactly the U.S. is speaking to inside Iran. In comments published by a major news agency in Iran, a spokesperson for the foreign ministry says there have been no direct negotiations with the U.S.
So, Willie, we're hearing a lot of reaction as well from all of this. What are we hearing from other leaders?
Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is calling for de-escalation and clarity.
I want to see more certainty in what the objectives of the war are. A de-escalation is in the global economy's interests.
That's a sentiment shared by many, but it all comes as more U.S. troops arrive in the region. Meanwhile, Pakistan says it will hold talks between the two sides. The country's foreign minister saying those talks are expected in the coming days, but neither the U.S. nor Iran has confirmed that they will be taking part in any talks in Pakistan.
Willie, thank you so much for this. CBC's Willie Lowry for us in Washington.
Thank you.
Air Canada says its chief executive, Michael Rousseau, will retire later this year. Rousseau was criticized last week for his lack of French in a condolence message. It followed the crash at New York's LaGuardia Airport that killed 2 Air Canada Express pilots.
Hello, bonjour. I'm Michael Rousseau, President and CEO of Air Canada.
The bonjour and merci were the only French words he used in the 4-minute video. The CEO has faced scrutiny over his French language skills since his appointment in 2021. Rousseau is expected to continue in his role until September. Air Canada says its board will consider a number of criteria when assessing candidates to be its next CEO, including the ability to communicate in French. A Winnipeg man is taking WestJet to court. He says the airline canceled his flight and denied compensation, citing safety concerns. But he did a little more digging into this and found out there was much more to the story. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
This is the one that went to Kelowna.
Rocky Neufeld is poring over flight records he obtained for his fight against WestJet. The Winnipeg man was sitting on a plane in Edmonton, headed to Fort McMurray, when he says a WestJet employee told everyone they had to get off. The aircraft was needed for another route. But shortly after, WestJet sent Neufeld an email claiming a different reason for cancellation.
They said it was mechanical issues.
Under federal rules, airlines don't have to pay passengers when they cancel a flight for maintenance that's safety-related. So WestJet denied Neufeld's compensation claim. He took the airline to small claims. In its defense, WestJet submitted a maintenance record showing Neufeld's plane did indeed need repair. But flight records show WestJet swapped in that broken plane 8 minutes before canceling Neufeld's flight, then used the original plane for a different route. Neufeld says in confidential settlement talks, a WestJet lawyer admitted to the last-minute plane switcheroo.
It was just wrong.
Air passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács says he strongly opposes people breaking a confidentiality agreement, but also says Neufeld's case is clear proof WestJet pulled a fast one.
When you tell a consumer, this aircraft broke down, but in fact the aircraft actually was elsewhere, that's fraud.
WestJet declined to answer any questions about this case or another similar case where the company swapped planes last minute, then claimed unplanned maintenance required for safety and denied compensation again. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's Minister of Finance and National Revenue is heading to China. François-Philippe Champagne will be leaving later on this week. His office says he will meet with government and business leaders. They're expected to discuss new investments and partnerships as Canada tries to diversify its trade relations. It follows a trip by Prime Minister Mark Carney in January. Champagne's office says that the visit marked a turning point in what it calls, quote, important bilateral relationship. Canada is looking to revitalize its trade partnerships with countries other than the United States, given the unpredictability of Donald Trump's ongoing trade war. Well, it's Avi Lewis's first day on the job as leader of the federal New Democrats. He is promising to bring the party back to life after a dismal showing in last year's election. Marina von Stackelberg has more now on the challenges that lie ahead for Lewis.
Thanks, everyone. The election of Avi Lewis marks a political shift to the left for Canada's NDP. The new leader is a self-described anti-capitalist. He wants publicly owned grocery stores and banks, large-scale government housing, and the end of fossil fuel expansion.
The NDP will start winning again because we will become that beacon to the 99%.
Lewis won decisively, taking 56% of the vote. His campaign was galvanized by a grassroots group of activists and young people. Voter James Newman says under Lewis, the NDP will know what it stands for.
People were saying this convention was going to be a funeral. It's not. It's a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Lewis has support from the older generation, too. He's backed by Libby Davies, a longtime MP and prominent figure in the party.
Well, it does remind me of the convention where Jack Layton got elected. There was the same sense of buoyancy and change.
But that change is not sitting well with provincial NDP leaders in Saskatchewan and Alberta. They were quick to criticize his policies as ideological and unrealistic. Now that Lewis has won, he'll face a whole new set of challenges. The party is $13 million in debt and only has 6 MPs. Lewis needs to win his own seat in the House of Commons and then win over Canadians. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, the 2026 Juno Awards was full of history-making moments for both veterans and newcomers to the Canadian music scene. Magda Gabraslassi has all the highlights.
The Juno's big show started with a bang. A surprise performance from Rush with new drummer Annika Niles. There were milestone moments for many winners. The Beaches winning Group of the Year 3 years in a row, the first all-female band to do it.
There's no better feeling than coming home. Thank you so much, Canada. We love you.
Cameron Whitcomb, on his Juno debut, took home 2 wins, including Breakthrough Artist.
I will not squander this opportunity. I love you guys, and thank you so much.
And when it comes to the legends, Joni Mitchell got the Lifetime Achievement Award. She spoke about how an aneurysm she suffered some years ago changed her life for the better, and she thanked the crowd for their support.
I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to be back in Canada.
Nelly Furtado, who's getting inducted in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, was also honored.
You know, growing up and feeling like I saw people I could relate with on TV, listening to it because Canada's always cared about art. Canada's always cared about culture. I'm a product of that.
From legends in the industry to newbies having a breakout year, there's been a lot to celebrate at the Junos. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Hamilton.
Probably be a waste of your time, but who knows? Chances are I'll step out of line, but who knows?
And I want to leave you with a little bit of R&B star Daniel Caesar. He took home International Achievement Award and Contemporary R&B Recording of the Year for Son of Spurgey. The album features a song with his father, a gospel singer who goes by the same name, Spurgey. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning to you. I'm Julie Buckingham in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, and hello to you on YouTube. It is Monday morning, the start of spring break. The current temperature doesn't feel very spring-like, -6 degrees. We are anticipating 2 to 4 centimeters of snow. Abby has your full forecast in a moment. Still to come on the show, if you've ever had a flight canceled due to unscheduled maintenance issues, maybe you didn't get compensation. Our Go Public team found out there could be more behind the story. Erica Johnson will join us with the Shell game just ahead. And we'll get some reaction from those who were at the NDP convention in Winnipeg and find out what they think of their new leader in Avi Lewis. Now to the news center with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the Manitoba Nurses Union says not having enough nurses available at ER and urgent care centres means more things are being missed. This after a recent critical incidents report from last year showing at least 6 people died in Manitoba after experiencing delays in the healthcare system. Darlene Jackson at the Nurses Union says the deaths are not surprising because she says there just aren't enough nurses to see the patients. And a refugee says red tape is preventing her identity from being recognized. Martha Hoja is a trans woman from Ukraine. She's been trying to get the province to remove her birth name from official documents. The Manitoba government telling her it only accepts requests from citizens and permanent residents. We'll hear more in our next local news at 8:30.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Still to come, we'll check on your traffic. But first, Abby has been monitoring the things that come together when it is traffic and weather.
Yeah, sunshine up north with temperatures near -26 to the wind chill feels close to -37. While down south, most of the region seeing temperatures close to -6 at this time. Winnipeg, we are at -6, anticipating about 2 centimeters of snow. But in the Parkland and Westman region, we're anticipating 10 to 15 centimeters of snow.
All right. Thanks so much, Abby. We'll continue to track that weather system for you throughout our shows here on CBC Radio 1. May McKillop is our show director, also checking traffic. It's been pretty quiet on the traffic line.
Pretty quiet so far. Not hearing about these snowy conditions affecting the commute yet, but there's about half an hour left in the show. If you want to give me a call and let me know what you're seeing along your travels, that number to call, 204-788-3093.
Avi Lewis is the leader of the federal NDP, elected yesterday at a party convention here in Winnipeg. Here is part of his acceptance speech.
Friends, if it isn't already obvious, we are building a new foundation for our party, and we are ready to come roaring back on the Canadian political stage. After 7 months of campaigning across this country, and speaking to thousands upon thousands of Canadians, here's one thing I know for sure, and I want to say it out loud. Canada, mark your calendar. The NDP comeback starts now.
That is the new leader of the NDP, Avi Lewis, sharing a few words after winning that decisively on the first ballot, garnering 56% of the vote. By comparison, former leader Jagmeet Singh won 53% in 2017. Now, Lewis does not have a seat in the House of Commons and now has the tricky task of rebuilding a party at historic lows with now just 6 MPs. For more on what could mean for the party, we're joined by two Manitoba NDP supporters. Paul Moist has been an active NDP member for decades and is the former president of CUPE, Canada's largest union, and lives here in Winnipeg. He supported Avi Lewis's leadership campaign. And Kirsten Garbett is a master's student in rural development at Brandon University, a delegate with the Manitoba Young New Democrats at the convention this weekend, who supported Heather McPherson's leadership campaign. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paul, let's start with you. What do you think of Avi Lewis as your new leader?
Well, there was over 2,000 New Democrats gathered in Winnipeg, and anyone who's been to a political convention, they're exciting, and this weekend's convention was exciting. I don't view the results as a huge surprise. There were two main contenders, Heather McPherson and Avi Lewis, and three other candidates. And McPherson and Lewis garnered 85% of the vote. And so I wasn't surprised at the result, but I think Avi Lewis brings new energy, much needed new energy to a federal NDP that's back on its heels right now.
From a longtime supporter to a relatively new supporter, Kirsten, you were supporting Heather McPherson's campaign. And what are your thoughts on her not winning and with Avi Lewis taking the helm?
I was at the convention and it was super exciting and there was so much energy. Even though it wasn't the results that I would have liked to seen, it was still super exciting to be surrounded by so many youth that support Avi. And so I think we're all really excited to just get going and bring back what the party used to be and really show Canada that we can show up.
So, Kirsten, what do you think Lewis will have to do to rebuild the party to bring in the ranks of young people like yourself?
I think he has a lot of the youth already. A lot of his campaign was youth. I think specifically for me, it's more of the prairies aspect of it. So, he just needs to unite us, which I think he's totally capable of doing that.
Paul, what do you think in terms of a rebuild? How optimistic are you that this can be done in time for a new election that could be happening sooner rather than later?
Well, we've been in this situation before. The creation of the NDP in 1961 was because the predecessor got hammered in 1958, reduced to 9 seats, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation. And the party was born in 1961. The NDP's governed in 6 provinces. Today, they have 2 provincial governments. They're the official opposition in 4 other provinces. So there's lots to build upon. Mr. Lewis has got to get out there on the hustings. I agree with commentators who have said he's got to get in the House of Commons, but that doesn't need to be job one. And I think the advice of Premier Wab Kinew, who was at the convention on Friday and yesterday, congratulating Mr. Lewis, was good advice. Focus on bread and butter, healthcare, education, worker rights, and affordability issues. But the NDP's got a $13 million hole to crawl out of. Mr. Lewis has shown he can raise money, and I expect we'll see him in every corner of Canada, reconnecting with first New Democrats and then average Canadians who are feeling the pinch these days.
Paul, Lewis's campaign described as an anti-capitalist movement, proposing things like a national cap on rent, a wealth tax on the top 1%. And what do you think in terms of specific policies that the NDP need to adopt to stay relevant?
Well, again, I go back to what Wab Kinew has said yesterday, and today he's in the local media saying the same thing. Focus on what the NDP is best about historically, the bread and butter issues. People are hurting out there. Paying the grocery bill and the rent leaves very little at the end of the month for many families. And so I think there's a 1,000 issues that he could focus on, but healthcare, the housing crisis, which he spoke to yesterday, workers' rights in a very difficult economy. Mr. Lewis is calling for regulation and legislation around artificial intelligence, and no other party is calling for that right now. And I do think those issues can resonate with Canadians, but he's got to get out into every corner of Canada and put those issues forward, and I think he can.
Kirsten, from your perspective, what are some of the policies that Mr. Lewis is floating attracts you? Is it the thought of a public grocery store, public things like service providers, telecom providers? What is it about those policies that you think, that could work?
I think the affordability for a lot of us, especially as youth, is what is most attractive to Avi Lewis's campaign, and the caps on large corporations. It is very scary for young people to be entering adulthood in this time when rent is skyrocketing, grocery prices, gas prices. So I think that is important to Avi Lewis's campaign, and hopefully he can really hone those policies.
Paul, you're a longtime member. I had the fortune to speak with Jack Layton during, I think it was the 2006 campaign, when they getting around 29 seats, I believe, in the House of Commons. And yet the NDP have really struggled to retain those seats. Why do you think that is, since that time when it was kind of the orange wave, so to speak?
Well, uncharacteristically, the NDP dumped a leader in 2016, Tom Mulcair. In the 2015 election, the NDP was the official opposition, and some thought, wow, this could be the breakthrough. And they ended up coming in third with 44 seats, still the second best result ever in the history of the party. But they dumped Mr. Mulcair, and the election of an Ontario provincial politician, Jagmeet Singh, has saw the party kind of lose seats repeatedly. We went from 15 seats in Quebec down to 1 today under Mr. Singh. It's not entirely his fault, but I think giving up our voice and signing on with the Liberals under the Trudeau government, the so-called supply and confidence agreement, it did yield results, a dental plan and the beginnings of a pharmacare plan, but we gave up something bigger, our voice, and we became synonymous with a disliked Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau. Then Mr. Trump came along, and wow, the squeeze was on in the 2025 election, and we got hammered. And I think the road back is to do what Jack Layton did. People forget, Jack Layton had no seat when he was elected. Then he went to 19 seats, then 27 seats, then 37 seats, and then the breakthrough in 2011. So it didn't happen overnight. It won't for Mr. Lewis. But I agree with Kirsten. He's got the ability to connect with a wide range of voters, particularly young Canadians. And there's a lot of work ahead. And the energy in that room told me he's up to that challenge.
And there'll be lots to watch in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Paul Moist is a former president of CUPE, longtime member of the NDP. Kirsten Garbett, a master's student in rural development at Brandon University and a member of Manitoba's Young New Democrats. Time to bring you our Go Public feature, rather. And if you've ever had a flight canceled, you've probably heard of that explanation: maintenance or mechanical issues required for safety. Under Canadian rules, when it happens for those reasons, airlines do not have to compensate passengers. But what if the explanation isn't always the full story? Our Go Public team has been looking at 2 WestJet cases where passengers were told their flights were canceled due to unplanned maintenance, but flight records suggest a different story. The CBC's Erica Johnson spoke with CBC's Corey Funk.
Good morning, Corey.
So walk me through the first cases. What happened?
Yeah, that's the case of Rocky Neufeld from Winnipeg. He was on a work trip taking a flight from Edmonton to Fort McMurray in February of last year. So he's already on the plane, seated, ready to go, when a WestJet gate attendant walks onto the plane and tells the handful of passengers on board that their flight is canceled. They have to get off the aircraft. It's needed for another flight. So the passengers all file off the plane, and not long after, Rocky gets an email from WestJet giving a completely different reason for the cancellation. It says it was due to unscheduled maintenance issues required for safety. That disconnect made him skeptical.
Right away, I suspected, no, there's probably a mechanical on another aircraft, and this one was more expendable because there were only 8 or 9 people on board.
So he decides to test his theory.
So then what does he do?
Well, first, he files for compensation, and WestJet denies it because, as you mentioned, Corey, airlines don't have to pay if it's a safety issue. But he doesn't believe that explanation, so he takes WestJet to small claims. And he also turns to Gabor Lukács, who heads up the advocacy group Air Passenger Rights. Together, they look at publicly available flight records, and they make a surprising discovery. Just 8 minutes before Rocky's flight was canceled, WestJet reassigned the aircraft. So the plane that was meant to fly him to Fort McMurray instead flew to Kelowna and back to Edmonton that day. For Rocky's trip, WestJet brought in a different plane, one that did indeed have mechanical issues.
So, and why is that plane swap so critical in this case?
Because it changes the context of the cancellation. If the original aircraft was operational and WestJet made a decision to reassign it elsewhere, well, that starts to look more like a business decision than an unavoidable safety concern.
Okay, so then what happens at trial?
Well, the case hasn't yet gone to trial. As the court date approached last month, WestJet made a settlement offer shrouded in confidentiality. But Rocky told us during those discussions, the airline acknowledged what had happened. He says a WestJet lawyer told him the aircraft that he had been on was needed for another route with more passengers. So the airline decided to cancel his flight and shift his plane to that other route. He chose to speak out about that, he says, because for him, this case isn't about the money. It's about holding a company accountable. He says he doesn't have an issue with airlines making those kinds of business decisions, but he does think they need to be transparent with passengers.
We've got some rules here. We got some appropriate ways that people should be treated. And every time someone strays from these, we become worse for it.
We asked WestJet to comment on this case. It declined to answer several email requests and didn't reply to voicemails.
So you also spoke to an air passenger advocate. He had some pretty strong language about this.
Yeah, he does. Gabor Lukács is the founder of Air Passenger Rights. He says airlines are absolutely allowed to shuffle aircraft around. That's part of normal operations. But he, too, says they need to be upfront about why they're canceling a flight because the reason determines whether compensation is owed.
Swapping aircraft is permissible. That's not fraudulent. Hiding the swap from the passengers is fraudulent. Refusing to pay passengers compensation on the basis of a shell game with aircraft is fraudulent.
Lukács says, well, he's glad to hear, according to Rocky, that WestJet acknowledged the airplane swap. He's strongly opposed to anyone violating a confidentiality agreement, which he believes Rocky did by sharing what was said in negotiations. But on a broader point, he calls this the shell game, airlines swapping planes, and thinks it's more widespread than we know because passengers tend to believe what the airlines say is the reason for a cancellation.
And it appears it may be more widespread. You actually found a second case that looks quite similar.
Yeah, Tanmay Mehta of Calgary reached out to us after WestJet canceled his flight home from Cancun in January. Like Rocky, he got an email saying the cancellation was due to unplanned maintenance required for safety. And when he filed for compensation, his claim was denied too. But he also questioned that, in part, he says, because he had heard similar stories from friends and he'd seen media reports about airlines violating air passenger protection regulations. So he checked flight records himself, and what he saw didn't line up. The plane previously assigned to his flight was busy that day flying other routes.
It was kind of really heartbreaking for me to have this kind of findings because I was expecting that if this was really a safety, like due to the safety reason, the aircraft should have grounded for the maintenance, not flying somewhere else.
When we took a look at flight records, we could see that the plane that was meant to fly him to Calgary was swapped out for another aircraft just an hour before WestJet canceled the flight. So again, the cancellation may technically relate to that second aircraft, but the decision to swap planes becomes central to understanding what really happened. And again, WestJet declined to answer our questions about the swap, the timing, or why Tan May wasn't given the whole picture.
Okay, so then now zooming out, what does this tell us about how well the system is working, especially when it comes to passenger rights?
Well, there are a couple of important points here, Corey. One is enforcement. In the past year or so, the Canadian Transportation Agency has fined multiple airlines, including WestJet, twice for violating passenger protection regulations. We're talking tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines for multiple violations. But critics say those penalties are relatively small compared to what airlines save by denying people compensation or in terms of sending a stern message. The other issue is complexity. Under the current air passenger protection regulations, everything hinges on whether a flight disruption is within the airline's control and whether it's related to safety. And that can be difficult for passengers to independently verify. That's why Gabor Lukács says his group, Air Passenger Rights, argues the system is too complicated.
We believe that Canada needs a regime which is similar to the European Union's gold standard, which, whether an airline likes it or not, everybody agrees that it's very simple. You can very quickly determine whether compensation is or isn't owed to the passenger.
He says Canada hasn't streamlined its air passenger protections, largely because the airline industry is a powerful lobby.
So what do you think passengers should take away from this then?
You know, the big takeaway is to ask questions. If you're told your flight is canceled due to maintenance, ask which aircraft was originally assigned, whether there was a swap, and when the issue was identified. Because, as we've seen, there may be more to the explanation, and it can make a big difference in whether you're entitled to compensation.
Definitely a talker. Thanks for this, Erica. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you, Corey.
If you have a story that needs investigating, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. Your CBC News starts now.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is -6. A windy day on the way. A little bit of snow expected as well, a couple centimeters, and a high of -2. Some federal NDP members say their new leader will bring the change the party needs. Avi Lewis was proclaimed leader at the party's convention in Winnipeg yesterday. The campaign frontrunner won in a decisive fashion after running what he described as an anti-capitalist campaign. Volunteer Nicholas Wheeler-Hughes has been backing Lewis since he first ran for office in 2021. He says the work has just begun.
I think that there are going to be a lot of Liberal voters, Conservative voters who maybe felt disconnected from the NDP. I actually think his message is going to bring those people back.
Manitoba's premier says he's not concerned about how the new federal leader will affect his popularity. Wab Kinew says he looks forward to working with Lewis. He says the two may have different opinions but share the same values.
Pierre Poilievre says that he supports unions. The provincial Tories say that they hate unions. Are you guys all going to fan out and write division in the Conservative ranks? No, right? Same with the Liberals. So when progressives have debate, have differences of opinion, we should view that as a sign of a healthy party.
Kinew says he has already started some discussions with the new leader, including on developing the Port of Churchill. The Manitoba Nurses Union says not having enough nurses available at ER and urgent care centres means more things are being missed. That is after recent critical incident reports from last year show at least 6 people died in Manitoba after experiencing delays in the healthcare system. Darlene Jackson at the Manitoba Nurses Union says the deaths are unfortunate, but not surprising because there are not enough nurses to see patients.
It may not be every hour during the day. They have busier periods. But I would say it's probably every shift you have individuals waiting that you're not able to get to. It's just the way it is.
Jackson is pushing for the province to follow through with patient-to-nurse ratio. Manitoba's health minister says they are working to increase staffing, improving patient flow, and reducing wait times. A 23-year-old Winnipeg man is recovering after he was attacked for a pizza in the North End last Friday. Raleigh Walker says 2 men hit his head with a hatchet and punched and kicked and choked him. He says it's all made him anxious about walking outside again.
They stitched me up in right here, I think 3 layers of stitches because it went all the way down to the skull.
There's going to be more treatment for my skull fractures, and just keeping an eye on making sure the infection doesn't spread, because there's already starting to be some infection.
Winnipeg police say the Major Crimes Unit is investigating. Mourning a woman who died after she was hit by a semi-truck over the weekend. A large group holding a vigil in Winnipeg's North End. Nadine Goosehead Sr. was hit by a semi at Dufferin and Main Saturday afternoon. The 50-year-old's sister, Kim Scott, says she will remember her sister as being full of love.
She was a very strong woman. Loved everybody. Loved to laugh, sing. Was always there when you needed a helping hand.
Goosehead Sr. was originally from Bloodvein First Nation. She had 4 daughters and just recently had become a grandmother. A refugee says red tape is preventing her identity from being recognized. Martha Hoja is a trans woman from Ukraine. She's been trying to get the province to remove her birth name from official documents, but officials won't accept the ID officials issued to her when she arrived in Canada.
Basically affects majority of your life in a devastating way, because this misrepresentation creates a loop for harassment and transphobia.
The province says it only accepts name change requests from permanent residents or citizens. It says accepting other documents may impact asylum claims. Hoja says changing the policy shouldn't be difficult and will help other migrants who may be in a similar position. You can find the latest news. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather Wells, thanks for your work this morning.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells. Let's check in with Abby one final time on our forecast. It has been a bit of a tricky day.
Yes, Julie, it's been a tricky one. We're anticipating that snow sweeping the southern parts of the province, but towards the Westman and the Parkland region, we will get more dump there. While down south here, we're anticipating about 2 to 4 centimeters, but the winds is something you should look out for, because it's going to be whipping those fluffy stuff around. So driving during commutes and tomorrow morning, I want to hear about it.
Yeah. And May McKillop is here, who has been tracking the commute, and so far okay.
Seems pretty okay on the highways along the commute. I'm not hearing about anything so far, but check Manitoba 511 for highway conditions. And thanks for the calls today.
Thank you for being with us today. Let's give some credit where credit is due to our associate producers, Corey Funk, Sierra Sanders, May McKillop, Sophia Peralta Barone, Joni Nicolo in news, as well as Megan Ketchison and Heather Wells. YouTube producer Darren Morash. Abby Adiemi is our senior show technician and weather specialist. May McKillop, our show director. Nellie Gonzalez is the producer of the Current Affairs Unit. Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio. I'm Julie Buckingham. Be well.